screen up just for a second so you can catch it in the recording. And then I'll take it down. There we go.
Aloha, fellow peace builders. I want to take this opportunity to give you a warm aloha. Welcome to District 5000's Global Peace Forum. Hawaii is often called the melting pot of the Pacific because of the diverse cultures of our residents. There's no majority. Everyone is a member of a minority group. We're pretty diverse in gender, race, age, life experiences, but here we see some of the tension, and at times we feel kind of helpless because we're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We see what's happening around the world in other parts of the world. So what we can do is have these discussions to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and ensure that generations to follow can really continue this fight for peace. So as Rotarians, we know that peace is a cornerstone of our mission, and we know that we need to keep that fire lit by being the people of action that we are. So thank you all for being here today to build goodwill and better friendship. Thank you, Mark Harbison, for your foresight to bring champions of peace to our table, to our islands, and to put this forum together. So Mark, we really appreciate your hard work and passion for Rotary. And I hope everyone is inspired and enriched by our fabulous speakers. Please enjoy today's session, and peace be with you.
Naomi, thank you very much. That was wonderful. Okay, to get us started, I know that in our promotions, we advertised Al Dubitz is coming at the end of our conference. Actually, Al is going to start us off. Instead of putting us to bed, he's going to wake us up. And so I'd like to introduce Al. Al is first and foremost the founder of the Rotarian Action Group for Peace, which is about to enter its 10th anniversary. Al is a successful businessman. He went to school at Yale and then got his business degree at the University of Oregon. His base is Portland, Oregon, although his second home and second love is in Kona, Hawaii. He is an honorary member he is a member of the Portland Rotary Club and an honorary member of Kona Sunrise, which is one of the District 5000 clubs. I'll take it away. I won't say too much, but needless to say, Al is at the heart and center of Rotary Peace and everything we are doing in Rotary. So Al, take it away.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you for organizing this conference. These conferences around the world are happening more and more, and it seems like every day. And it's just a testament to how, I would say, magnetic the topic of peace is, how people long for it, how Rotarians are building peace by having conferences such as today. So hats off to you, Mark, for organizing this, and the district. Governor, thank you for your comments. Tip of the hat to the Kona Sunrise Club, which I attend when I am here. They say they are the little club that can, and I say and does. A small club in Kona that does an awful lot. I'm so proud of them. I appreciate the fact that the panel today is gender balanced. I made a commitment a year or two ago as a gender champion, and refused to speak with panels that are not gender balanced. So it's great to have gender balance on this. Thank you for considering that. Today you're going to hear from Reem Gunim, who I've had the pleasure of knowing, a Peace Fellow. She runs the Action Group for Peace. And I want to tip the hat to Dennis Wong, who I understand is on this call, my compatriot. It was his idea. I said, let's do it. So I really consider Dennis the founder of the Action Group. But there's a lot more going on than the Action Group. Although it's very, very important. I'll get into that in a bit. But today we're going to hear from Gretchen Alther and from Scott, two local NGOs, very, very important, East West Center and also Seeds of Peace. I think it's just terrific that Rotarians reach out to these NGOs and give them an audience and support them at the same time. You'll also hear from RI Director Peter Kyle, a friend and mentor of mine, who really is articulate when it comes to Rotary Peace and what's in our DNA. So Peter, it's great to see you on this call. And even though I have other commitments today, I hope to hear some of your remarks. But each of the people on the panel and each in the audience have a special interest in peace. And I just wanted to acknowledge that each of us comes at this a little bit from our own life, or a lot from our own life experience, and maybe with a different passion for parts of peace. But at the RAG, we say to discover your piece of peace and to nurture it. And the RAG provides an opportunity to do that. Rotary started action groups, we call them RAGs for short, over a decade ago, and the Rotarian Action Group for Peace was one of the early ones. Now, can you believe it, 10 years old? We have been consistent in our passion and belief that peace is the path to personal security as well as safe communities. And we do three things. First, we engage. We decided at the outset that we would be a membership organization, attracting Rotarians and Rotaractors, Peace Fellows and their families as members, and asking that they pay dues to help support our professional staff in Portland. Second thing, so we engage people. Second thing we do is educate. The website's full of articles and videos about the science of peace, if you will. And we are guided by academic learning and the trend lines that are on that the world is seeing as a more peaceful planet, at least internationally. There's still civil wars, but overall, we are riding the trend lines of peace internationally. So we're happy about that. We think there's much more we can do educationally. And I like the term peace literacy, teaching interactors and high schoolers peace literacy. Third thing we do at the RAG is we empower people. We have been very pleased with the fact that Rotary clubs want to be considered peace builder clubs. And so that idea was pioneered by past district governor in our District 5100 in Oregon. And the action group has picked up on the idea, and what was about 30 original peace builder clubs in District 5100 is now over 230 worldwide. If you look at the peace builder club map, you'll see on all continents. So that Rotarians are just saying, I want to be part of the peace builder club movement. And so that's very, very encouraging. And the RAG office helps support them and get them started with projects and so forth. The other thing that's more recent is the concept of chapters. The Action Group for Peace is North American centric, admittedly, and we need to be worldwide. And so chapters are cropping up from Hong Kong to Switzerland and places in between. And so that's a very encouraging trend, and Reem can fill you in if you have any questions on that. But how do we know we're making a difference? Two of the metrics are what I just mentioned, peace builder clubs and chapters, but projects are important as well. And in the United States, more and more Rotarians are getting involved in the racial justice conversation in their communities. And what we've learned is that when grassroots Rotarians start asking questions in their communities about how let's say, institutions are aligned with equity or racial justice, people listen. And it's not that we necessarily have the answers, but we ask the questions. And I think that's one of the significant additions that we Rotarians contribute to the local conversation. And so in my own city, which has been in the news internationally and nationally, we're doing a lot of work there. So I just want to stop there and thank you for engaging today. Thank Mark again. And I hope it's a rich, I'm sure it will be a very rich workshops and learning opportunity. Peter Kyle will hopefully tell you what's happening at the national and international level as Rotary, in my judgment, is moving toward being overtly a peace organization. We obviously have built peace for the first 115 years in various ways, but I think once polio is behind us, that I really hope that we all engage and demand that we stand up and be recognized as a preeminent peace organization in the world. So thank you very much for this opportunity to introduce the day, and back to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Al. Round of applause.
Sorry, I had to do it on a phone. My computer decided to die just as I was signing on.
No, that was quite good and quite elegant. You're perfectly framed in your iPhone.
Yeah, but my hand's not steady.
No, thank you very much, Al. And,
All right.
that's a great entree. And let me let me go right along. We'll keep this moving. I'd like to introduce our next keynote speaker, Reem Gunia. Reem is the executive director of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. She is a positive peace activator. She is an ambassador for the Global Peace Index by the Institute for Economics and Peace. I could go on and on about Reem. She is a Peace Fellow. She has a master's from Duke, UNC, Rotary Peace Center. Reem has been an amazing director of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And most recently in the era of Zoom, she has really opened up the organization, the Rotary Action Group to everybody. And her series, Together in Peace, has been a fascinating series of interviews with some of the great peace builders in the world. I cannot say enough about Reem. And so I'm going to let her speak for herself. Reem, please take it away.
That's probably one of the sweetest introductions I've had. It's from the heart. It's not so many words, but it's from the heart, and it arrived and landed in my heart. So I appreciate your introduction. I am very thankful to everybody to be here today, and I'm honored to share with you my presentation and remarks. So for my presentation today, I would like to start with a few remarks about a vision I would like to share with you for the peace area of focus in Rotary. After these remarks, I would like to share a presentation about the Rotary Action Group for Peace and how it can help you as a platform to take action for peace today. Growing up in Palestine, I did not only experience the constant humiliation and oppression by the militarization of the place I called home, but I also could recognize the beauty, generosity, kindness, and brilliance of my people. I always wondered why the world would let the oppression continue when my people did not deserve it. I, for a long time, was disappointed in humanity. I could see the gaps in the political statements. I could see the half-truths in the media. I could see the conflicting agendas of the international NGOs. I did not know or believe that there were people who truly cared to help us. When I decided to help myself and my community, I stumbled across Rotary. I was seeking a higher education scholarship then and decided to do the Rotary Peace Fellowship program. When I opened the Rotary website for the first time in 2011, that was 10 years ago, it was unexpectedly a joyful experience for me. I experienced a sense of relief. I realized that my extended disappointment in humanity had come to an end. When I saw the mission of the Rotary Foundation and Rotary International and the wonderful impact they had on our world, I fell in love with this organization from first sight. Their elevated motto of service above self helped me realize that there are people in the world that care. Rotary renewed my faith in humanity. The website highlighted the identity of Rotary, and that identity resonated with me. Let me summarize this identity in the following 5 points. First, Rotarians are capable. Second, Rotarians are focused on helping the most vulnerable. Rotarians address the root causes of humanitarian crises. These root causes are poverty, illiteracy, disease, and violence. Third, Rotarians have many friends. They have partners at all levels around the world who can help their humanitarian mission. 4, Rotarians welcome all. We share a commitment to serve above self. 5, Rotarians are the catalysts for positive change. What else did I learn when I joined Rotary? I learned about polio eradication, and I learned that Rotary is a founding partner of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. Rotary has been working to eradicate polio for more than 35 years. We started with a small project in the Philippines in 1979. Since then, Rotary members have contributed more than 2.1 billion and countless volunteer hours to protect nearly 3 billion children in 122 countries from this paralyzing and deadly disease. Rotary's advocacy efforts have played a role in decisions by governments to contribute more than $10 billion to the effort. In 2021, we've reduced polio cases by 99.9% since our first project to vaccinate children in the Philippines in 1979. Our goal of ridding the world of this disease is closer than ever. Today, polio remains endemic only in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and unless committed, there is always the potential for a resurgence, but it is crucial to continue working to keep other countries polio-free. If all eradication efforts stop today, within 10 years, polio could paralyze as many as 200,000 children each year. Let us think harder about this phenomenal polio eradication story of Rotary. It is much more than the statistics I just shared with you. It is the story of our world coming together for the most vulnerable. It is the story of civilians and governments collaborating to save lives. It is the story of scientific innovations that work for humanity. It is the story of building an infrastructure and networks around the world for vaccinations. It is the story of the marriage of resources and compassion. It is the story of serving above self. It is the story of humanity at its best. Polio eradication is humanity at its best. It represents Rotary in action. When I see and experience this phenomenal human achievement, it fills me with hope. I know what we can do, and I see how we can do it. Rotary already showed us how to solve complex humanitarian problems at a global scale while utilizing the dedication of Rotarians at the local level. Just like polio eradication, peace is also complex global aspiration. How can we aspire to our vision of advancing world peace in Rotary? I would like to share with you my vision for Rotary's role in world peace. According to UNICEF, in whose charter Rotary was a prime contributor, the number of countries experiences violent conflict is the highest it has been in the last 30 years. The result is that more than 30 million children have been displaced by conflict. Many of them are being abused, exploited, trafficked, and enslaved. In the case of polio, when Rotarians focused on children's health, we brought the world together. Imagine if we brought the world together again by focusing on children's safety and fulfillment. We saved 3 billion children from polio over the past 35 years. In regard to the 30 million children who have been impacted by conflict, I believe we in Rotary have the power to change their lives. After all, this is what our Rotary International President is calling on us to do: serve to change lives. My vision and ask from you today is to start implementing exceptional, sustainable, and life-changing Rotary projects directed towards the support of the 30 million children suffering from conflict and most in need. As UNICEF states, children are coming under attack in conflicts across the world. We can't accept this as a new normal. I was a child of oppression and conflict. If it were not for the support and kindness of my international friends and Rotary, I would have not been with you today. My being with you today is like a miracle. It is time for us to act. A child fulfilling their potential should not be a miracle. It should be the norm. What does peace mean for our children? The wise words of Queen Rania of Jordan is the answer. Peace means our children can sleep to a mother's soft voice, not screaming sirens. Play with building blocks, not watch their homes destroyed. Make friends, not lose them. Dream of big plans for the future, not wonder if they would have one. Peace also means hope, and by raising our voices for peace, you're giving hope to millions around the world. You may ask, how can we do that? By doing what we are best at, by doing what we did for polio one more time for peace. We have the power to create energy, awareness, and commitment for peace. We need to focus our Rotary resources and networks. We must utilize Rotary grants and connect peace building to all Rotary's areas of focus. We must capitalize on the Rotary Peace Centers. We must collaborate with peace leaders, researchers, educators, and scholars. We must build a Rotarian peace infrastructure and design systems to support our peace building efforts. We need to utilize science and use measurable peace frameworks to monitor the progress of our efforts. We must continue to innovate peace building solutions for the 30 million children who need our help the most. The Rotary Action Group for Peace is your gateway for peace action. It is your way to start building our global network for peace. It is your way to carry the momentum we need in Rotary to help the most vulnerable. With that, I would like to share with you some slides about the Rotary Action Group for Peace and all you need to know about it to act for peace today. So thank you for listening to my remarks, and I will share my screen now. So the Rotary Action Group for Peace is asking Rotarians to take action for peace. And I'd like to start with back to my story from Palestine. I want to ask you and invite you all to think about your images of peace and conflict. Mine was the olive tree. I've seen the extremes. I've seen the branch that the olive tree branch that symbolizes peace, and I've also seen the strive for freedom and human rights. And as you can see, the bird on the military wire represents the militarization. So between all that, there is different shadows of conflicts and peace. And I am inviting you to take a moment and think about your own images of conflict and peace. Share in the chat what these images are, because I'd like us all to learn from one another. So as I've seen those extremes, Rotary extended a hand for me. And here I am with my cohort at the Duke UNC Rotary Peace Center, empowered to bring peace to my community and the world and be with you today. So for that, I am thankful. As you can see, this is the problem that I was talking about in my remarks earlier. We have a global aspiration for peace, but peace is not a universal reality. This is a peace map or heat map produced by the Institute for Economics and Peace that shows us the variation of the state of peacefulness in our world. And the more red the countries are, the less peaceful they are. And the more green they are, the more peaceful they are. This leads us to this issue of peace inequality of our world that continues on increasing, where there is a gap between the least peaceful countries and the most peaceful countries and communities. And this gap continues to grow. And that is not sustainable for world peace, because that creates this inequality and frustration at a global scale and could easily produce violence. So what do we do at the Rotary Action Group for Peace? Our mission is to really address that through the efforts and the compassion and the passion and commitment of our Rotarians by engaging them and giving them the resources they need to engage and educate and empower their own communities. So we engage and empower, educate them, and then in return, they also engage, educate, and empower the communities they serve. So how we do that, we have 3 focus areas. We are focused on raising the profile of peace building in Rotary and beyond. So we are bringing attention to the issues of peace building and the opportunities for Rotarians to contribute to peace action. Second, we support the Rotary clubs and districts peace action. So Rotary clubs around the world have identified peace initiatives and actions, and we promote and elevate and collaborate with them to maximize their impact in their communities and beyond. Third, we provide and facilitate peace education to our Rotary network by providing educational resources and and giving them access to other vetted educational resources as well. So in short, the Rotary Action Group for Peace is a global network of peace builders. And we are now in almost 125 countries. And our members constitute our hub of peace action, where they connect to a global network of peace builders around the world and work and collaborate together. So this is how our membership looks like in numbers. We have members around 5,125 that receive our communications. We have peace builder clubs now 280 in 30 nations. Our social media audience is around 10,000 followers. And our website in the last 165 days had 46,000 visitors. So we have an energy and interest and demand for peace. And we continue to grow this interest through our various efforts. So some of the major efforts or initiatives that we've held in the last Rotary, on this Rotary year, the 2020-21 Rotary year, we've elevated and celebrated International Peace Day. We've had various Right for Peace workshops and events. We've had the Together for Peace webinar series. We've supported the Global Cyber Peace Conference 2020 that was held in Turkey. We produced monthly educational newsletters. We've produced the, started the, or held the 2021 virtual open house. I hope many of you were there and experienced it. And then as of now, our last major event is the 2021 Peace Dove Gala, which I would like you to join. So I'll highlight some of these examples in depth in my following slides, so you have a deeper understanding of them and our work. So the virtual open house is a great example to share. It was one of our engagement efforts and events in Rotary. It brought Rotarians from around the world to an 8-hour online event where we celebrated Peace Month and Rotary's birthday. Rotary is 116 years old now. We've had about 140 people registered, and we've had a global participation by district governors. I see some of them joining us today, which for that I am grateful. We've had 130 Rotary clubs from around the world. 10 clubs are becoming Peace Builder clubs because of that event. And we've had 4 educational videos that were prepared and presented for our audience over the 8-hour online event. So the Peace Dove Gala is, mark your calendar, it will happen in June 30 of this year. And the Peace Dove Gala is a celebration of impact of collective peace action that our members, that our work of peace builders has cultivated. And it's a great occasion to welcome our members who are Rotarians and Rotary actors and peace fellows to come together and be inspired by one another. So I invite you to RSVP and register today. You can find all this information on our website, Rotary Action Group for Peace.org. Also we invite you to engage in various ways, such as sponsoring and donating to contribute to inspiring peace building event. Some of the workshops and the educational materials we produce is this one, Social Media, a Platform for Peace, that we presented at the Turkey Cyber Peace Conference. This particular workshop was designed to towards Rotary actors and interactors, where we would like to show them the power of social media and how they can turn it into a platform for peace and how they can become peace influencers. We have all kinds of influencers on social media, but we don't have enough peace influencers. And I believe with our interactors and Rotary actors, we can lead a movement of peace influencers on social media. So this workshop shows them how we can bring that to happen easily. We also presented the Activate Positive Peace workshop and workbook to our Peace Builder clubs and at various events such as the Geneva Peace Incubator to professionals in 30 professionals representing international organizations. This workshop is designed to teach them about positive peace, which is a framework by the Institute for Economics and Peace, and how that positive peace framework can be implemented through Rotary. So we've used Rotary case studies, Rotary projects to show the world and teach the world about how they can themselves push positive peace and learn from Rotary action for peace. I'd like to elaborate a little bit more on Together for Peace webinar series, one of our programs that we've done this year. It was really initially started as a response to COVID and how we wanted to keep peace at the forefront of our agenda, and by engaging people and bringing them together in the virtual world when we were socially isolated because of the pandemic. And here is some of the impact of this series. We've held 26 episodes, we've had 26 guests, and we've had 26 powerful conversations over 2 seasons. We've had over 100 calls to action to peace builders worldwide. We've had more than 30,000 views during the first 6 months and growing. We've had 25,000 minutes viewed on Facebook. We've had viewership from 45 plus nations, and our guests are from 8 nations serving projects in over 30 countries. And our Rotarian network and attendees and their commitment to show up every day and their interest in peace is the reason behind this impact. Thank you all for making this happen. The campaigns we've championed are of various focuses. We've talked about, for example, human rights, racial justice, COVID response, environmental sustainability, women's rights, social entrepreneurship, mental health, homelessness, philanthropy, religious freedom, and how all these issues relate to peace building and specifically to Rotary's peace building. We've featured organizations and we've had partners such as Destiny Rescue, Cities for Peace, Cleaning the Rivers of the World, Institute for Economics and Peace, Rotary International. Peter was on our show. Please watch his wonderful episode, YouTube, Together for Peace, Peter Kyle. You will see him there and learn more about his story and his vision for peace. The other program that we have at the Rotary Action Group for Peace is Peace Builder Clubs. And Peace Builder Clubs is really, I think of it as an infrastructure for peace that allows Rotary clubs to have a focus on peace building and bring this intentional focus and resources towards peace building in their communities. As of now, we have 280 clubs registered, and they continue to grow worldwide. And this is a map that highlights where they exist. And we hope to populate this map more. So if you know of any Peace Builder Rotary clubs that are not yet Peace Builder clubs, please let them know about this program. You can find all the details on our website, and I will share some more with you now. So how can you become a Peace Builder club? Read our resources. There's a standard criteria available on our website that allows you to understand what is the Peace Builder Club in depth. But all it really takes for you is to submit an application from your Rotary Club that is interested in pursuing peace and maximize the peace efforts in all the 7 areas of focus. You need 2 representatives on your application. So bring that energy, bring this proposal to your club and decide on your representatives, and then submit the application to the Rotary Action Group for Peace. And you can do that by also submitting it on contact@rotariansforpeace.org. Check our website, rotaryactiongroupforpeace.org, and you will have all the information you need there. So I hope to have many more applications from you. Once you join as a Peace Builder clubs, these are some of the actions that we hope that you will be taking. Join the Rotary Action Group for Peace. Help us empower our network of peace builders. Join our Facebook group special for you, especially made for Rotary clubs who are Peace Builder clubs, where you can connect with one another, post your projects, and learn about your activities. Get informed on the latest peace education. Read our Activate Positive Peace workbook that I presented on earlier. Learn from the Positive Peace Academy, which is a resource also available to you through our communications with you once you are a Peace Builder club. This Positive Peace Academy is a wonderful project by Rotary International and the Institute for Economics and Peace that teaches you about the Positive Peace framework. Subscribe to our monthly newsletter and read the Peace Builder Club Primer that allows you to understand the basic steps to taking peace in your club. Once you are up to date with all this peace education, I hope you will be inspired to start a peace project. And you can also go to the Rotary Action Group for Peace website and look at all the various peace projects that we have there that could inspire you to start your own or support them that they already need support. Share also your own peace projects once you have come up with your own, and engage with Rotary Peace Fellows. It's very important as you develop your peace projects, as you are exposed to, as you're interested in learning about peace education and want to make that accessible, is to collaborate with Peace Fellows. And I'm sure that Peter in his remarks will highlight how you can do that as well. And please apply for a global grant that is focused on peace building, because we need to help those in need in other countries that are not getting the help. So now all of us, any Rotarian, any peace builder around the world can become a Rotary Action Group for Peace member. And that helps us empower the grassroots systems and structures and attitudes, because once you are a RAG for Peace member, you are an agent of peace. So please join us and empower our global network that empowers communities to convene, collaborate, and unite for peace action. So this is the details of our membership as of now. We have 1 year Rotary membership for $50. Our Rotary Act membership for this year, we have a special offer of $5 because we are interested in having as many Rotary actors as possible. 1 year Rotary Peace Fellow is $15. And so these are the levels of membership that we currently have, and we hope that you can join us. And if you are a member, please invite others. So to summarize, what is my call to action? Please join the Rotary Action Group for Peace, grow our network, strengthen our network. If you are not a Peace Builder Club, become a Peace Builder Club. If you know of other Rotary clubs that are not Peace Builder Clubs, invite them to join and take action for peace. If you watched and joined the Together for Peace series, we are planning our season 3 for the new Rotary year, so we'll keep you posted. But for those who missed season 1 and 2, they're all available on our website and also on YouTube. We had tremendous speakers that I hope that you will learn from and learn about their visions for peace. Read our Rags for Peace letters. And lastly, please participate in our upcoming Peace Dove Gala to learn about all the action for peace around the world, led by our members and our heroes of peace, and the amazing work they do in their communities to advance our vision. Lastly, please start your next peace project with the Rotary Action Group for Peace, and get to help others through a peace project. I'd like to leave you with a peace inspiration before we open it up for Q&A. It's a quote from Marianne Williamson, who said, "In every community, there is work to be done. In every nation, there are wounds to heal. In every heart, there is the power to do it." And with that, I'd like to thank you for having me and allowing me to speak to all of you. Thank you. Mark, you're muted.
Thank you, Reem. That was awesome, as always. Thank you so much. I think there will be some questions. I've asked people to type them in the chat. While we're waiting for people to have a chance to type their questions, let me ask you one. I think for me, one of the most important things that has happened this year is that the Rotary Peace Fellows have formed their association, both international and in Europe, and they're preparing to put on a fantastic peace conference. And also, they were the driving force, along with the Rotarian Action Group, of the Rotary Peace Incubator. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, about the Peace Fellows Association, how they were involved in the Peace Incubator, their conference, what's coming up?
Yeah, this is a great question, Mark, because what you're highlighting is our role of capitalizing on the expertise, skills, and energy of the Rotary Peace Fellows, who are a population in Rotary of trained scholars. And as a result of the efforts of the Rotary Foundation, to have this, now we have hopefully seven peace centers around the world, and we just started a new one in the Middle East. So the Global Peace Conference, led by the association, I am, as a Peace Fellow, I'm not on the board of the association, but I can share from my own perspective. It's a wonderful event that Peace Fellows has organized and are collaborating together to bring in, to highlight the various issues of peace that is of an interest and is a priority for them, that they want Rotary to pay attention to and collaborate with them on. So that is a wonderful event. I believe it will be upcoming in June. I need to verify the date. It's June 19 or 17. It's June 19. And so please RSVP, go to their website. We, the Rotary Action Group for Peace, will be also promoting their the registration for the website, and we will keep you posted. So please follow our Facebook page for updates, subscribe to our newsletter, because you will be updated on when these events become available and accessible to all of you. And I invite you to join them. As for the incubator, it's another example of Rotarians and Rotary Peace Fellows coming together. But the incubator is not focused, it's more focused on the project's development. So the conference is focused on raising awareness about peace issues. However, the incubator is more focused on bringing that awareness into action. So it was led by Rotarians in Geneva, and the Rotary Action Group for Peace has supported their efforts. And it brought about 40 Peace Fellows, I believe, and other Rotarians together to have projects in 10 focus areas. I was part of a group of another 3 Peace Fellows who focused on economic development and peace building. So our focus area was economic development and peace building. And I can speak about my experience in that group, where I've worked with Peace Fellows who I haven't worked with before. It was fantastic. I developed new friends beyond my cohort at the Duke UNC Rotary Peace Center, which was really positive. I've had met and collaborated with a Peace Fellow from Mexico, another from Bolivia, and another who focused on a project in Kenya. And I focused on a project for Palestine. And we supported each other, and we worked with Rotarians, and we've held several meetings. Our projects caught the attention of many Rotarians and peace organizations, and we are still being contacted to learn more about how to advance this project and develop it further and get funding for it. I believe all the projects still seek funding in the Geneva Incubator. So I believe we've communicated widely on the Geneva Incubator in our newsletters. You can go to our website and research our newsletter archive to learn about the incubator and how you can help all the Peace Fellows who need support for your projects. They also, Peace Fellows post their projects on our website, so you can learn about their projects by going to the projects page as well if they chose to submit their project on our website. So with that, I hope this is good information for you, Mark.
I have a great question here from George Vinker, and he asked, Reem, what would be your greatest wish contributing to peace between Palestine and Israel?
Oh, that's
an easy question, right?
Yeah, I think I would refer, I tend to think out loud. So bear with me. So I am serving on several boards that are helping with the Middle East conflict. And I have so much pride and happiness and joy when I serve on the board of Hands of Peace. Hands of Peace is focused on the empowerment of young Palestinian and Israeli teens to become agents of change in their communities. And I am proud to say that since I've joined their organization, they were going through a reimagining process of reimagining of the organization. And my biggest contribution as a Rotary Peace Fellow, as a Global Peace Index Ambassador and Positive Peace Activator, was to help them adopt positive peace in their mission and vision for the region. So my biggest hope is to have positive peace be a tool for young Israelis and Palestinians to empower their communities to become resilient and peaceful. And I believe once we have abundance of positive peace in Israel and Palestine, then we would be, and reducing the peace inequality between Israel and Palestine, we would come to a place where people can have understanding, mutual understanding, and productive dialogue. But as of now, if you look at the data, there's various peace inequalities that makes that um, peace process in many ways not as productive as we would like it to be. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and along the same lines, as you know, my passion is global grants in Rotary. Can you tell us a little more about your project in the Peace Incubator? Which was
Okay.
a fascinating project.
Yeah, it is really along these lines. So Palestinian youth are disempowered with the economic injustice in Palestine. There's no infrastructure for brilliant engineers, brilliant creators, brilliant innovators, scholars and artists to contribute. So my project was to establish a social entrepreneurship lab in my marginalized city of Tulkarem to bring those young people who don't have access to jobs to become entrepreneurs and produce solutions, innovate solutions for their community while employing others in their community, but also by allowing them and empowering them to have access to global market. And in doing so, they will meet people from around the world and become, and their experience of humanity will inspire them to become agents also for peace. So I want them to promote peace in the social entrepreneurship incubator to promote economic development and peace by collaborating with Rotarians and companies across away from Palestine, and using technology and using innovation and to create these projects. And this was inspired, I should say, thanks to Rotary. I would have not been able to come up with this proposal that's being now discussed by other peace organizations without their empowering me to learn about social entrepreneurship in my master's. So this is all just the fruition of your generosity and support and faith in women in conflict zones to become empowered to lead peace in their communities. So for that, thank you.
Thank you. That was a beautiful answer.
If you would like to introduce Helen Peacock, our peace speaker on May 12th meeting, ? New paragraph. If so, I
The Zoom world.
I'm not sure what that was. You know, I have a beautiful question from Dennis Wong. Dennis Wong is one of the grand old men of the peace movement in Rotary. And his question, another easy question for you, Reem, a puffball. What do you say when people say that peace actions are political?
Peace actions can be political, but they're not entirely, there's different focuses of peace. Peace has different facets, and some of the peace activity or peace advocacy can be political, and that's fine. And we need peace to happen at all levels and through all people. And as we've seen in the polio eradication efforts, I highlighted in my remarks that Rotarians has been advocates with their governments, and that contributed to governments taking action and contributing $10 billion towards that humanitarian vision. I feel that we should be careful as Rotarians to adopt the do no harm framework. As a peace fellow, I urge Rotarians to engage in political advocacy only if they have vetted that it does not cause harm to other ongoing projects or hurts other, because if we don't have a focused political peace advocacy, we can be engaged in doing harm. So that's very delicate and requires a lot of expertise and leadership and responsibility on our own to be engaged in. So those are my thoughts on it, and feel free to tell me otherwise.
Another question from Dennis was, what are the 3 top goals and areas of focus for the Rotarian Action Group going forward?
The top goals. So as
For the
of
next
now,
fiscal- No, go ahead.
so
sorry.
definitely sustaining the Rotary Action Group for Peace. We have, that's one of our goals, is to create sustainable organization financially. As of now, we've relied heavily on the generous support of our founder, Al Jubitz, and his foundation, the Jubitz Family Foundation. And we're so proud that we've, this year, the board has made a great decision the past Rotary year to integrate a development team into our organization that allows us to grow to the organization sustainably. And that means looking at all aspects of the organization and streamline it to be become effective, mission oriented and focused and more ethical. So I am proud of those efforts, and I'm excited to help the RAG mature to become the organization that can help as many people as possible. The second goal, I would say, is outreach and grow our network of peace builders. So thankfully to the virtual reality of our world because of COVID, we were able to utilize effective outreach techniques and strategies. And with that, we've grown our base and our members, and we continue to do so. So we will continue to cultivate our organization. And the third one, I'd love to see us support more peace projects and collaborate with, bring more collaboration across our Peace Builder clubs to after we grow them, to see them engage in peace projects and global grants for peace. So those are really my 3 focuses, and I believe they're shared by our organization as well.
I have a question from David Dinner, who is the president of the Rotary Club of Hanalei Bay and on the island of Kauai. David asks, he says, pursuit of peace is a beautiful vision. How do we know, and is there a way to measure that our efforts are successful?
Luckily, the Institute for Economics and Peace has created a framework of positive peace and the Global Peace Index. And to me, that's a tremendous stepping stone for peace in the world, because if we can't measure peace, we can't monitor, we can't evaluate our progress. And the challenge is, how can we adopt those frameworks into specifically what we do in Rotary? I really would love to see an intentional investment, hopefully from Rotary, to not just to educate on positive peace, which they've done a tremendous amount of work there, and it's important because you can't even do further steps without focusing on bringing that awareness on positive peace first. But I hope that the next steps would be around utilizing that measurements, collaborating with the Institute for Economics and Peace to find out how can we measure our efforts in all the 7 areas of focus with the positive peace at a macro scale, so micro and macro scale. And that requires a lot of money and investment and energy. But I think if we want to measure our progress and contribution to world peace in Rotary, we should start doing that groundwork and foundation for this, and measurements of peace are inevitable for us to measure our impact and progress on peace.
I have another question from Brian Dunkel, who is from the Rotary Club of Waikiki. Brian asks, how can peace building be successful in situations where the conflict is based on fights over scarce resources? Should efforts be only in areas where the underlying reasons for the conflict can themselves be solved? I'm sorry, Brian is from the Rotary Club of Honolulu, which is our oldest Rotary Club and our grandmother of everyone. So Brian's question, how could
I
peace
hear-
building be successful when the conflict is based on fights over scarce resources?
Well, that is why peace, of course, we can't, like peace and in all the 7 areas of focus is connected to all the 7 areas of focus. We can utilize peace building by creating the projects that the community needs the most. We definitely can combine addressing the issue of meeting necessities with peace building, and positive peace framework allows us to understand those connections. And that's why we need the positive peace activators, we need the peace scholars, the Rotary Peace Fellows to help Rotarians maximize peace building impact in each Rotary project. As of now, we don't really have those synergies in place, and I really hope that we will continue to create them and show Rotarians and the world through example, how can we do that?
I have a question from Rotarian Sebastian Hebler, and he would like, in fact, this segues into something I would like to ask. Can you speak a little bit about the general framework of Rotary Peace, including the partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace, and MBVI, Shelterbox, and the Peace Corps?
I would say I know very little about that. I can't give you my impression, but I think the best person to answer this is Peter, because he is our, peace guru at that level in Rotary. So I would defer that question to Peter. But my short answer is I am happy as a Rotarian, as a Peace Fellow, to see, and as a Rotary Action Group for Peace Director, to see that Rotary is intentional about partnering with peace organizations. So for that, I am grateful. And I am also grateful for their focus on the peace centers and the global grants for peace. And I know that Peter has a more elegant answer to this than me.
There's another question about refugees and what can we do to help them? What can Rotarians do? Maybe you know of a good project or something you could, the position that the RAG is taking.
So refugees is not a regional issue, it's a humanitarian issue. I think we should be aware of that. And because it's a humanitarian issue, refugees have, when we help refugees, we open opportunities for our service in all 7 areas of focus. Refugees need, in many cases, water and education and health and all the things we have to offer in our 7 areas of focus. So to me, it's directing the energy and the resources and the attention towards them and helping them. And so creating the projects, in creating multiple projects in these areas of focus that involves refugees. That's how we can help them the most.
So thank you very much. I think we have kept you long enough. Thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for answering all of our questions. It's a beautiful presentation. We appreciate it very much. Is there a final question that someone would like to unmute yourself and ask away?
Yes, Mark, I have the question written down in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it. Can you repeat it? Murray,
Yes,
can you?
yes. It's been my experience that a high level of corruption is a major obstacle to peace. How can we realistically address this problem?
I think corruption is an issue of alignment. So I think it's accountability. And so in Rotary, for example, we can start with ourselves and showing the world, maybe come up with a model of fighting corruption, and how can we work together well. So to me, once someone or a group or anyone deviates from their original promise to the public, or their mission, or their principles or their values, we should not be silent as Rotarians. We have a duty to speak truth to power. We follow the four-way test, and that four-way test is a great framework actually to question alignment and to bring, to highlight the issues of when people deviate. And I think every Rotarian serves above self by speaking truth to power, by doing it compassionately, by doing it to enlighten others. Many people sometimes don't seem to understand that they are not aligned, but I think our job as humanitarians is to always align ourselves with our words, actions, and principle and thoughts. And that's why we say that the four-way test is of the things we think, say, and do. The four-way test is a solution for alignment. And I really hope that, I really think in Rotary, we can capitalize on the four-way test to address corruption inside, and then we can inspire our world outside.
Assistant Governor Ken.
Yeah, my question to you is, how can we partner with sports to bring about peace? Because we've seen that when there's sport going on, sports event going on like football, peace seems to be another factor. Example is Didier Drogba of former Chelsea Football Club in UK used the power of sports to unite his country during the civil war, during the last civil war in Ivory Coast. So how can the Rotary more or less like key into that kind of partnership? Thank you.
I think any tool, sports could be a tremendous tool for peace, and it could be, it's really about how you frame it. So for example, if you are addressing a population that doesn't have access to recreational efforts, like a refugee camp, or a poor community, that, and so you can utilize education and sports and combine that with peace building. Sometimes I know that some conflicting communities would, bring people of different teams from the different conflicting communities and practice sports. I think it's a tremendous idea. And I think that is a great solution that Rotarians could capitalize on, to connect it with peace building and connect it with education and connect it with with helping refugees. Refugees don't even have basic needs, and they're children, and they need to be happy and learn and get their frustrated energy out. So yeah, I think sports is a wonderful and tremendous vehicle for peace building and helping the most vulnerable in the world. And I know there is tremendous examples of that, just like you mentioned, and bringing this to Rotary's attention is a wonderful thing.
So, Reem, thank you very much, and thank you for answering all our questions. Wonderful presentation. I think we'll move on now. I would like to, how about a round of applause for Reem Guinea? Thank you so much, Reem. I would like to introduce now Gretchen Alter. Gretchen is a Peace Fellow. She was at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand. She is now at the East West Center and is developing and expanding the leadership program for women. She directs the center's flagship residential course, the Asia Pacific Leadership Program, and contributes to other short and long-term training both in Hawaii and across the region. The East-West Center and the Matsunaga Peace Institute are probably the two premier peace institutions in Hawaii. We're very fortunate to have Gretchen here, and I would like to turn this over to her and let her begin her presentation. Gretchen, please take over.
Thank you, Mark, and aloha, everyone. Thanks for the generous introduction. I always feel it's always nice to be in the Rotary community, and I really appreciate how welcome you all make me feel. I also wanted to thank Reem for your presentation. It was wonderful to hear you share, and I share a lot your framing of the issue, so much appreciation. I feel honored to be among the speakers and with Reem. Yeah, and the openness that the Rotary shows guests like me is really a testament to who you are as a people and as an organization, and that you value friendship and you value neighborliness. And actually, I think that ties in very, very, very nicely to the theme of the conference today, which is peace. This peace is a major commitment to Rotary. It's a common thread across all of the organization's work. And I am inspired by that, and also am a beneficiary of that as a Rotary Peace Fellow, sponsored by Hawaii, particularly by Honolulu Sunset Club. Continue to be very grateful for that support. But first, so I have some things to talk about. I'm really excited to be invited here, glad to be with you. But first I want to tell a story that a few years ago, I went to the dentist for the first time in a long time, actually. So hopefully I seem to you like a pretty put together person. You did sponsor my application to the Rotary Peace Program in Bangkok, in part because I guess I seemed pretty put together, but I'm going to admit to you right now that it had been about 4 or 5 years since I'd gone to a dentist. And I think we all know how quickly time flies, of course, but waiting 4 years to see a dentist is a bit risky. So I was pretty sure the dentist was going to tell me that I had a bunch of cavities and I immediately needed at least 3 root canals, probably 5. So I was nervous, and I was sitting there in the dentist chair, mouth open, hands shaking. And I got to thinking that teeth and peace have a lot in common. And with that visual, I would like to ask you maybe to think to yourself or share in the chat. I love using the chat, by the way, so I encourage you all to use it liberally. Share in the chat, what does peace mean to you? And we've had some time to think about that already this morning with what Reem has shared and the comments and questions so far. But what does peace mean to you? And I would like to ask Mark, is it okay if I share a PowerPoint? Okay, you're on mute. I'm assuming it's okay.
Go ahead, Gretchen, go ahead.
Great, thanks, great. Okay. Great, so as you think about what peace means to you and reflect on what we've heard already today, I will share this, that at its most basic, peace is a nonviolent way of being. It's a state of mind, it's a state of society. Many peace builders, I'd like to consider myself one. I imagine all Rotarians are, even if they don't self-identify as peace builders. That peace builders imagine peace as a line that connects our inner peace with our families, our communities, our nations, and the world. And peace is thus associated with values like kindness and justice, and also safety and security and freedom. And again, you know personally how Rotary as an organization and those who form it strive to embody and strive to demonstrate peace in really practical terms. I'm always, well before I was a Rotary Fellow, in my work around the world, well before I came to the East-West Center, I worked in humanitarian crises and conflict, particularly looking at people's right to recovery and response. And Rotary was often there at the ground level, sponsoring programs that were incredibly practical and helped meet people's felt needs, their real needs on the ground, as well as some of these bigger, I don't mean bigger, I mean more like less tangible needs that people have in creating trust and community. So peace as optimal conditions for human flourishing. Let's see if I can. So I've asked you what peace means to you. I'm sorry, I can't actually see the chat. So I know we'll have a chance for questions and answers, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts. But a helpful framing of peace, and something we've already heard about this morning, many of you may be familiar with this in part because one of the major partners to Rotary's peace efforts is the Institute for Economics and Peace, which was mentioned by Reem earlier, and their measures of this. I feel this framing is incredibly useful. They, of course, didn't come up with positive and negative peace, but they've come up with some really incredible measures for it. But a helpful framing of peace is to see that it has two extremes or two ends. On one end, it's the absence of something bad. That's how we often think about it. Peace, that's how most people think about peace, as the absence of war or conflict, or the absence of violence, or if you live in my neighborhood, maybe the blissful absence of the noise from that one baby next door who cries all night. But that framing of peace is negative peace, the absence of something bad. But on the other end is positive peace, the presence of something good, and those somethings good are what helps us as individuals and our communities to flourish. So positive peace, we can see, I'm sure you can imagine that continuum from negative to positive peace. Maybe also you can now see why I connected my teeth to peace. So the blessed actually absence of cavities, I didn't have any, and the even more blessed fact that I didn't need any root canals is like negative peace, the absence of something bad. My dentist told me I was lucky. I believe her. She also told me I have a small mouth. And given that she likely sees many mouths in a day, I think she probably knows what she was talking about. So now I think about my mouth a lot more than I used to. But anyway, she did say that I needed to work harder to create a better overall situation with my teeth and in my mouth. I needed the conditions for dental flourishing. I should brush more. I should brush more gently, actually, is what she said. Brush more gently, floss more regularly. That might be something we can all relate to. And come in twice a year for cleaning. That's like positive peace, I thought, like as I sat there in the chair. That is creating the conditions for flourishing. So thank you for letting me pull that analogy all the way through. I really like that. So one thing I learned when I was a fellow in the Rotary Peace Program in Bangkok is that there are now really good measures and frameworks for peace. I'd like to take just a quick break and mention that there are Rotary, as you know better than I, sponsors a lot of work around peace, and they sponsor peace fellows. And among the peace fellows, there are folks who are younger than I who have the opportunity to go get master's degrees, which is incredible. And I just thank you so much for making that opportunity for people. It's incredible. They have centers around the world they can apply to and learn about peace in an academic setting at some of the best institutions in the world, and you make that possible. And then there's the program I went to, which is for people who are a little bit older in a career already, and they go to Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, a premier institution there, and we have a chance for 3 months to work with 24 or 5 other people, also mid-career, even higher, across a variety of sectors. And we also get to learn about peace, but in a much more condensed, perhaps more practical, I suppose, way. So one thing I learned and that I was really excited to learn was about the good measures and frameworks for peace. And the Global Peace Index, which was also mentioned, many of you are maybe familiar with it, ranks 163 independent states and territories across the globe according to their levels of peacefulness. This Global Peace Index, or GPI, gauges global peace across 3 broad themes: the levels of safety and security, the extent of ongoing domestic and international conflict, and the degree of militarization. Factors are both internal and such as levels of violence and crime, and external, such as military expenditures and wars. This positive peace index, sorry, the other is the positive peace index. It looks at the conditions of human flourishing, which the Institute for Economics and Peace has grouped into 8 pillars of peace. So I'm going to show you both of these because this is what I learned as a fellow, and I think it's really exciting, and I think it helps us ground this idea of peace into something really concrete. So let's take a look. This is the 2020 Global Peace Index, kind of mapped out, ranging from very high peace or more peace in dark green to really low peace in red. Those in yellow, like we can see here, US, China, South Africa, Thailand, we currently measure at medium levels of peace. I really encourage you to go look at this online. It's really, really interesting. We're not going to be able to get into it today in depth, but the top 5 may not surprise us are Iceland, New Zealand, Portugal, Australia, Denmark. The bottom 5 are Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, South Sudan, Yemen. And I guess I encourage you to think, maybe to note in the chat, what do you notice as you look at this map? Again, I will say that the Global Peace Index measures safety and security, ongoing conflict, militarization, civil unrest. You can look at the report and see how they measure those things. It's a pretty complete and complex index. So let's because I know not all of us here are from the United States, but because we are, because we're located in the United States, let's look at that a little further. So we can see here, you can sort of read that, I hope, that we're looking at the US 2020 ranking, and we're currently 121 out of a total of 163. We rank just below Honduras and Azerbaijan and above Burkina Faso and South Africa. I'm sure that you have thoughts about that. So we rank low. This is really low. And we rank this low mostly because we are among the highest on militarization, 160 out of 163. Behind surprisingly for me, France. So they're a little bit higher than us, but above Israel, Russia, and North Korea. So in fact, for a number of years, we have scored, the United States has scored the worst possible score on a number of domains, including incarceration, external conflicts, weapons exports, nuclear and heavy weapons. And interesting, because we rank the lowest, this masks within the index the ongoing deterioration in this area, because we're already so low that any more deterioration gets masked. So we clearly, we as a nation, but I would say we as a world, because this is true of other nations as well, have some things to watch. But we also have this measure of positive peace, which is that other end of the continuum, which we've heard about already from our other presenters. And the pillars of peace is, it's not a new conceptual framework, but it was new to me, so I consider it new. When I was in grad school, we didn't have this mapped out like this. And this is the incredible work of the Institute for Economics of Peace and other thinkers. Again, applaud Rotary for being a major partner with the Institute for Economics and Peace. So this conceptual framework is for understanding and describing the factors that create peaceful societies. It defines it's sort of like the national characteristics that are most closely associated with peace and have, as all the work with the IEP, they've derived these from a process of pretty good statistical analysis. Pretty good. I'm not a statistician. I'm sure it's great. They have really amazing people on their team. And this is one of the few holistic and quantitative studies that isolate the positive factors that sustain and reinforce peaceful societies. Things like attitudes and institutions and structures that are associated with peace and also associated with many of the other aspects that we consider desirable in our communities, such as strong business environments, gender equality, high levels of human capital. So the pillars of peace can be seen as describing like the optimal environment for human potential to flourish. And if you recall, that is a suggested definition of peace that I put at the beginning, the optimal environment for the potential to flourish. I would say human potential, but because I deeply care about the environment, I would like to see that be environmental potential to flourish. And the IEP is in fact trying to measure that ecological threats and environment a bit more. So I think you can read this, but the things that they measure are well-functioning government, sound business environment, low levels of corruption that was mentioned as a question just a little bit ago, acceptance of the rights of others, high levels of human capital, good relations with neighbors, and by this they mean national neighbors, free-flowing information, and equitable distribution of resources. So these factors are interdependent, mutually reinforcing. They try to show that in all the lines that they have connecting, so that when there are improvements in one area, they tend to strengthen others and vice versa. This means that for me and for the IEP and many others, that peace building efforts should aim to enhance and build on these pillars as much as possible, as well as dealing with the tactical issues of violence containment. So when we think about peace building, we can look at building in the positive peace range. I think that's really, really important. Again, it's not about containing violence. It can be, but when we really talk about peace building, we're saying we want to increase the acceptance of the rights of others. We want to increase our levels of human capital. We want to increase the free flow of true information. So, and equitable distribution of resources. That's what the data is telling us. So one of the more interesting findings to flow from this research is the relationship between resilience and peace. And resilience is defined as the capacity of social systems to absorb stress, to adapt, and to repair. And we as humans are, of course, a social system. Countries with higher levels of positive peace tend to be more resilient to external shocks, whether those are economic, geopolitical, or natural disasters. This really seems important in our era of trade wars and climate change and pandemics, that countries with higher levels of positive peace tend to be more resilient to these shocks. I'm almost done with this and we'll open it up to some questions, but a little more statistics because I think this can be helpful. Peace is statistically associated with better business, higher per capita income, And here I think it's worth noting that although the prospect of creating a world which is entirely peaceful is kind of utopian, like I love that, that's my goal, but it's a utopian proposition. But that the financial benefits alone are clearly significant. For instance, analysis by the Institute for Economics and Peace, IEP, showed that the global economic impact of violence was $14.5 trillion in 2019, PPP, so purchasing power parity. 14.5 trillion last year. That's, is that last year? 2 years ago. That's nearly 11% of the global GDP, or about $5.25 per person per day. That is the impact of violence. So if we decreased violence just by 10% in 2019, we would have nearly $1.5 trillion in spare economic resources and activity. That to me, I can't even fathom that. That's huge. Okay, so that's a positive peace index. And I wonder if you can guess where the United States ranks of the 163 nations on this index. Some of you may know this. Curious if you can guess. So because I can't see the chat, I'm just going to wait a few beats and then I'm going to tell you. Oh, that's not right. Sorry. I'm going to tell you, but I don't have a slide on that. We currently rank 31 out of 163. So, I mean, that's pretty good. It's not as good as we were a few years ago, but there are a number of reasons for that. But sorry about that. We have really high levels of positive peace. I mean, that's the good news. We have the United States, in many ways, not always, we have a strong society. We have a strong foundation to build on. That's where I think I come in. And that's my goal, I guess, as a peace builder. I'm going to take off this slide, but I'm going to stop sharing so we can all see each other a little bit more. But I want to talk about some of these photos that you see represent some of the things I've been involved in since I was a Peace Fellow. So you can kind of take a look and then I'll take the slide down. And then I do suggest some resources too. The Rotary Positive Peace Academy is great. The Institute for Economics and Peace, which we've talked about a lot. The Pillars of Positive Peace, you can also find that at IEP. The US Institute for Peace is actually really pretty great. I recommend them. And then the Institute for Climate and Peace, which I will talk about a bit more, housed here in Hawaii. And as Mark has already mentioned, premier peace institutions here in Hawaii are the Matsunaga Center at UH and Seeds of Peace, which my colleague Scott will talk about in just a bit. Let me stop sharing. Wonderful. Okay, so I guess what's next? Here's where I get to say that because of your support of me as a Rotary Peace Fellow, and because of what I've learned from the program and continue to learn, and the connections that I've made with your support and your generous funding, I'm able to do some pretty cool things now. And I'm really grateful to all of you, to the Rotary Foundation, to Rotary here in Hawaii for the significant part in making that possible. I hope you continue to do that well into the future for others. I wanted to mention four of the cool things I get to do. And you'll actually get to experience one of them with us today. One is my ongoing partnership with the Institute for Climate and Peace, which I just mentioned. Here in Hawaii, brings together people from a variety of different institutions. And we're an organization that is working to build peaceful and climate conscious futures for the well-being of all, especially for the most vulnerable. I regularly bring them into my leadership programs at the East West Center, and we're looking to bring this programming to more places. We are in talks right now with the Institute for Economics and Peace and with Rotary on building a peace leaders education program. Really, really excited about that. Another is a fellow peace fellow, that I met in Bangkok. His name is Drew Foxman. he was in a picture that I had up just a minute ago, founded and runs a program called Giant Steps Music, which runs really cool music action labs, a music residency that unites musicians from across the world to create social impact music and to nurture the next generation of musical change makers and peace builders. We had planned with the East West Center to run a musical residency here last summer, along with John Osorio, a well-known musician here in Hawaii, and then COVID. But we pivoted and we have an online artists in resonance that features specific musicians paired with global musicians who are collaborating to learn more about their music and their work in the community and create soundtracks for that. You can find that online. It's pretty cool. We've had about 17,000 video views of the work that we've done. And again, that would not be happening were it not for the support of Rotary. Another cool thing I've done is in my programs in the East West Center, where I design, develop, and deliver leadership training and education for mid-career professionals. We've been able to infuse the curriculum more and more with peace leadership. And just an example of that was on the Big Island a couple of years ago with a small group of international students at UH who are from the supported by the Asian Development Bank. We explored a peace building framework called The Third Side, another great framework, which seeks to understand the various sides to conflict and find a way to transform these conflicts. And we applied that framework to case studies on the Big Island and actually environmental case studies. And then the students also applied that framework to their own near future leadership. And the fourth, and here I come to the end, is something that my friend and colleague, Scott Nishimoto, and also Jose Luis Barsola at the Matsunaga Center, and I will share with you in a moment. But it's about what we do as individuals. How can we reinforce positive peace at the community level? We know, we see it right now, and just looked at that together and shared that with you, that positive peace is where the peace building we need to keep supporting positive peace and not letting it erode, try to build it. That's what Scott and Jose and I are working on. How do we reinforce positive peace at the community level and help build the foundations for trust that are so important to inoculating us against violence? Again, none of this would be possible without you. And again, I thank you and I applaud you for your support of peace building in so many different ways. Our world is more peaceful because of you and because of the work that Rotary does. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gretchen. That was a beautiful, elegant, and eloquent introduction to what's going on in Hawaii. The East West Center and the Matsunaga Institute are centers for peace building in Hawaii. I'd now like to introduce you to another great peace builder in Hawaii, the executive director of Seeds for Peace, Scott Nishimoto. I had the opportunity to participate in a peace conference that Scott organized in Hawaii with the various peace groups. And there are an amazing number of peace groups in Hawaii, and educational groups, religious groups, faith-based, working toward peace. Scott is the executive director who pulled all that together and pulls it together daily. So we'd very much like to hear from him. And for those of you who are not from Hawaii, this will give you a good microscopic view of what's going on here and how much activity there is in the Hawaiian Island for peace. Scott, take it away.
All right, thanks so much, Mark and Gretchen. Great to hear your presentation. Mahalo for having me. Mark's right. I think that's my goal right now, just trying to pull it all together as a dad, as the executive director, as a community member. So just trying my best. So that means a lot, Mark. Thanks for saying that. As Mark said, my name is Scott Nishimoto, and I'm the executive director of Seeds of Peace. And I'm really glad we started with our dear friend Gretchen, because she came with some really important statistics and research that kind of ground the work we do at Seeds of Peace and sort of give us more motivation to do the work that we do. But I'm not coming with stats and research here because I knew Gretchen would. So thank you very much, Gretchen. I was asked to talk a little bit about my experience as a peace builder and a little bit about what we do at Seeds of Peace. And I want to start with an introduction. So my favorite way to introduce myself is through a concept called the 200-year present. I'm sure many of you folks have been through this process, but I feel like we should do it again. It's an exercise we've done several times in our workshops at Seeds of Peace, and really want to share it with you folks, and at the same time share some of my own motivations for being a peace builder and doing the work that we do. So the 200-year present is a concept introduced by a woman named Elise Boulding. She was a Quaker, a peace scholar, a sociologist. So here we go. So I'd like you folks to kind of follow along with me. I'd like you folks to think about the oldest person who held you as a child, someone you love, okay? Think about that person, say that person's name in your head, okay? And think about what year they were born. If you don't know the exact year, that's totally okay, just estimate, okay? Now, think about the youngest person who you've held, someone who you love. And give that person a name, put that name in your head. And if they live a long, healthy life, 75 to 100 years, around what year will they pass away? Okay, so put that year in your head. That's your 200-year present. So I'm going to tell my 200-year present first. When I think about the oldest person who held me as a child, that would be my grandmother, who was born in 1917. And I just want to share a little bit about her story because it does have a lot to do with why I'm here and why I'm a peace builder. During World War II, my grandmother's father, so my great-grandfather, he was interned, he was imprisoned by the US government simply because he was Japanese and he was therefore deemed a threat to the US. Looking back, he obviously wasn't. He sold Japanese plates and Japanese kids' toys for a living. So I'm not sure where they saw the threat. But they took him from his family here in Hawaii and they sent him to the continent, kind of moved him around different internment camps over the course of 4 years. And he left behind his wife, so my great-grandma, as well as 7 kids, including my grandma. And shortly into the war, his wife unexpectedly passed away. So my grandmother, as maybe about a 24-year-old at the time, became the mother of the household. She cared for all 7 of her siblings as well as caring for her own children. So I share this story because when we talk about peace and peace building, for me, it's really humbling to know that my family and my ancestors and the strength and the resilience of my family is the direct product of the consequences of war and discrimination. And for me, it's just a real honor to exist today to try to play a part in making sure those really dark moments in history don't happen again. And it's something that motivates me daily. So I'd like to challenge you folks to think about that ancestor and what they went through and how you're the product of the wars and injustices that they were subject to, okay? So now fast forward to today, I wanna share with you a second story. In October 2017, I remember sitting in the delivery room when my daughter was born. So my daughter's a 3-year-old now. And when your child is born, you see on all the TV shows, everyone tells you it's supposed to be the happiest moment of your life, right? That's what people say. But I remember feeling absolutely terrified. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, we just brought a baby into the world who is a future woman, who is part Native Hawaiian, a person of color, someone who's going to be exposed to the biggest effects of climate change during her lifetime. And statistically, with all of these identities that she has, she's not destined for an easy life. But my daughter's existence makes me feel like I do have this special privilege to work really hard to shape a better future for her and her generation. And that's also why I'm committed to this field and committed to being a peace builder. So I just wanted to kind of start with this frame of thinking, this kind of unique perspective that I go back to quite often, because I think this perspective and this process of going through your 200-year present, it kind of motivates me, and I think it'll motivate many of us to keep progressing towards peace, just as our ancestors have, and to keep building peace so our next generation feels the outcomes of our efforts. Yeah. So I'd like to challenge you folks to kind of go through that same process yourself and kind of spread that process with others, you know. So without even thinking about it, I think this path as a peace builder is kind of the path that I chose for my life. I have the privilege to now be the executive director of a nonprofit organization called Seeds of Peace. And we're an organization founded by Dr. Maya Sutoro and Dr. Kerry Urosevich, two renowned peace builders in our circles who many of you may know. And our mission is to raise peace building leaders. Sounds kind of simple, but it's not. When I say Seeds of Peace, you might notice on my name, not sure if you can see that, but seeds, it's a made up word. You're not going to find this in a dictionary. It starts with the letter C, and it's a reference to our focus on what we call our C leadership skills, or our seeds, which include compassion, courage, conflict resolution, collaboration, and connection. I'm missing 2 C's, but there are 2 more that you can find on our website. And we're an organization that's working really hard to raise peace building leaders, to help people discover that peace building leader that already exists within themselves. And then also to kind of rebrand peace as action, okay? So what drew me most to Seeds of Peace is this focus on rebranding peace. And what do I mean by that? I think the best way to explain this is by asking you the question we ask all of our participants at the beginning of our workshops. And that question is, what does peace mean to you? Okay, very seemingly simple question, but I'd like you folks to throw your answer into the chat. Maybe just like a one-liner. What does peace mean to you? I'll give you 15 to 20 seconds to type that into the chat. What does peace mean to you? Okay, I'm seeing balance. I'm seeing outward peace is useless without inner peace. Peace to me is calm. Sorry, the chat's just going really quickly. Acceptance, I'm seeing foundation for thriving, mental peace inside, harmony, freedom, love, kindness, global equity, unconditional love, happiness, whatever it means to Gretchen. Let's just follow Gretchen into this, yeah. Safety, prosperity, quality of life. Awesome. These are wonderful answers. So yeah, these are great answers. And you know, to me, if you imagine peace sort of on a spectrum, and on one end you have world peace, right? The end of all wars, the end of all violence, the end of all weapons. And on the other end, you have this other version of peace. Maybe this is an answer we've heard in the past. Peace is sitting under a mango tree singing Kumbaya, right? So we at Seeds work somewhere in that vast region in between singing Kumbaya and world peace. We're working together with our community and other communities to actively build peace within ourselves, peace with others, so this sense of interpersonal peace, and peace through service to the community. And we're trying to rebrand peace as action, right? So it's not just a feeling, it's not just something you study, although it can be both of those things too. But to us, peace is an active process to build peace and build a peaceful, resilient, beloved community. And we recognize that this active peace building process is really hard work. Sometimes it's dirty, it's on the ground, boots on the ground, it's in collaboration with others, it's really uncomfortable at times, right? So how do we kind of set the foundation to do this? At Seeds, we do this by creating various platforms and opportunities for the community to come together and work together to do this. And under each of these, on top of each of these platforms, we start by teaching these foundational skills and these foundational tools and values of critical thinking, of courage, conflict resolution, compassion, collaboration, connection. Hence our name, Seeds of Peace, right? We hold 100+ person workshops for educators and community members. We run various youth peace building cohorts every year. And these platforms result in hundreds of what we call action plans or peace action plans that have ranged from anti-bullying curricula in schools, youth-led voting campaigns, stream restorations in Waimanalo, rallies against gun violence. So a few years ago, there was a March for Our Lives, Honolulu, and 2 of our youth actually organized that whole thing. So yeah, I mean, that's the action we're talking about, right? Our flagship workshop, the workshop or the service that kind of started Seeds of Peace to begin with, is what we call our 3-part peace building workshop. It may be called a 4-part peace building workshop because we're moving virtual this year. But for now, let's just call it the peace building workshop. And in this peace building workshop, we bring together educators, DOE educators, private school educators. We bring together parents, general community members. We brought together police officers and judges and artists and entrepreneurs. And first, we kind of talk about some best practices when it comes to peace building. And that's led by Maya and Carrie, our co-founders. But then we also bring in a crew of guest speakers from our community who have been peace builders in their own right. Following the guest speakers, we kind of break our participants into different groups and we go through what we call our facilitated action planning process. And during this process, this is when they're designing and launching their own efforts to build peace within, with others, and through service to the community. Like I said earlier, we also have several youth action planning groups. This is something relatively new to our work at Seeds. We have, well, this summer, I'm very busy right now because we're planning 4 cohorts just for girls over the summer. And Gretchen has been a mentor for that program in the past. Gretchen, I owe you an email because I may be asking again if you're interested.
I'm interested.
Awesome. Thanks, Gretchen. That was easy. But in addition to these girls cohorts, we run more cohorts across different schools and different communities during the school year. In fact, our Youth Action Alliance, which just finished up last weekend, was actually partially supported by the Rotary Club of Honolulu. And I think I saw Lila Berg on this call earlier, but thank you so much, Lila, for partially funding that program. And in 2020, in the midst of this pandemic, we were able to work with over 120 youth to develop action plans. So that's something we're pretty proud about. What else do I want to share? In addition to these various workshops, we also have a really major project that focuses on trauma-sensitive education. And we're training educators and parents in trauma-sensitive practices. We're working with rural and remote elementary schools to wrap their youth in social-emotional learning practices, as well as wrapping them in positive community supports. And this kind of work is also very core to our efforts at Seeds. So yeah, I think our approach is to kind of bridge the introduction to what we do. I think our approach at Seeds is just a really nice reminder of how change works and how peace is built. At times it happens gradually, with hard work, chipping away at this mission. Peace building doesn't only look like this seemingly endless pursuit to end all wars and all violence, as lovely as that sounds. Peace building also looks like building peace within yourself, building peace with others, building peace through service to the community, and mobilizing others to do the same. It's not only studying peace at a university and talking to world leaders and diplomats, it's also about working with youth, our future world leaders and diplomats, youth and educators who work with youth. And it also looks like being terrific parents who model peaceful actions in their homes, and parents who make sure that social-emotional well-being is at the core of what they practice and preach for their kids. So yeah, I started with the 200-year present to kind of remind us that everything we do has generational repercussions, right? And it's a great reminder for me in the work that we do, that if I ever feel like my actions are not enough, or our actions are not impactful enough, they can be. You know, the things that we put in motion today may not manifest in systemic change for another generation, unfortunately. But we need to set that force in motion. We need to start somewhere, right? We need to take action, no matter how hopeless or unlikely it may seem. We might not see that change now, but our kids, my 3-year-old daughter may see it. Her kids may see it. Her grandkids may see it. Others in her 200-year present may see it. Yeah. So I'm like way ahead of time. I'm realizing it's only 9:58. I think I was supposed to end at like 10:30. But Mark, what's on the agenda?
Scott, that's fine. That's fine. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Come on. No, we're fine. We're fine. It'll give you
Okay.
more time for the workshop, and Peter's going to come in at about 11. So we're great. And I wanted to get to Reem's question for both of you. What is the major goal of your organizations, and what can Rotary do to help? Let's start with Gretchen, ladies first. And Gretchen, would you address that question?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I appreciate it. The East West Center is located here in Honolulu. We also have a DC office. It is a government mandated, was 60 years ago set up by government mandate, continues to get a line item appropriation. So I would say the work I do that I've talked about here is kind of a small piece of a fairly large institution. Actually, lots of connections to both Seeds of Peace and particularly the Matsunaga Center. They're all historically interconnected. I work particularly in our professional development program, which seeks to support non-degree fellows from around the region who are looking to strengthen their agency as leaders, both individually and collectively. I would say, yeah, I think among many of us are Scott and Jose and I sort of in these 3 different institutions, really thinking actively about how we can work together. And in my smaller capacity, in my particular team, I would love to keep connecting more actively this idea of leadership with peace leadership. I think they're inseparable. I would like people to see it that way. And then I would like to, perhaps strengthen connections to Rotary and other Rotary partners to do that work. And where Scott works with children and educators, where Jose and the Matsunaga Center work with degree-seeking students generally, and where I work with professionals, I'd love to see all of us continuing to support people like Scott does, who are trying to take real active on the ground actions around peace building. Perhaps there's a role there with Rotary. I'll turn it over to Scott.
Yeah, so
Yeah, Scott.
yeah, so our mission is to raise peace building leaders, and like I said, we have a number of these different platforms where we're able to do so. So how can you folks help? I'm thinking of a few categories. So one is definitely connections, right? You folks, the Rotary clubs are so connected to the community, and our ultimate goal is to have a really nice cross section of our community or communities attending a lot of our adult workshops. We don't feel like it's good enough if only educators attend our workshops or only parents, because as we say, it takes this 360-degree approach to kind of wrap youth in peace building practices. Logically, if they're getting great education at school, but their parents are beating up on each other, or they're hearing a lot of violence in their neighborhoods, then they're getting mixed messages, right? So for that reason, we love connections to different groups to attend our workshops and work together. on these workshops. We're also always seeking resources. And when I say resources, I don't only mean money, although I do also mean money. That's that's the worst part about my job. I hate asking for money, but I feel like I need to. But not a lot of money, you know, like, yeah, we always appreciate donations and financial support to be able to continue to run our programs as a small local nonprofit who doesn't receive any state or federal funding at the moment. But resources also in terms of mentorship. You know, we have a lot of these youth programs, and like I mentioned earlier, Gretchen has been an amazing mentor to some of our youth participants. And as we launch more of these youth opportunities in the future, we're going to be looking for more incredible, awesome, kind, peace-building adults to work with our youth and kind of guide them through their action plans. And then finally, yeah, I'd love for you folks to take it upon yourselves to launch action plans. And action plans are basically just well-organized efforts to take action in your community. And that's something you folks already do, but let's try to do more of that, right? And let's try to work together to do more of that and actively build the peace that we want to see in our communities.
I have a question here from Dennis Wong, and I cannot imagine a better person to engage in a dialogue on the pillars of peace. And he asked Gretchen, would you agree that the 8 pillars of peace is a policy-driven approach to peace? For example, the equitable distribution of resources is an important factor affecting other pillars of peace. In the United States, the size of our military budget means less money for human capital, education, healthcare, as well as addressing poverty and inequality. So the decisions on budgets are policy driven, and policies drive the other pillars. Can you give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I agree. I think they very clearly outline areas for policy action and change. And I further think they outline where each one of us in our own spheres of influence might think about our own actions. So for example, equitable distribution of resources. Let's take that one. I control a budget as an employee of the East West Center. Am I making sure that these resources are equitably distributed, right? So I think we could think about that. If you run a community program, like are we using the resources that we have, both human and financial, in a way that supports equitable distribution? So I think we can look at it at the level of nation states, at the level of states, at the level of communities and like public budgets, let's say. But I think we can also look at all of those 8 pillars of peace and ask ourselves individually, how am I organizing my teams in a way that reflect the things that we know strengthen connection and community and make us stronger. So yes, and is my response to that. I hope that's helpful. Thanks for the question.
Gretchen, you mentioned in the chat, but I'd like to give you a chance to go public. You say you failed to mention the East West Center vision. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, I'll just be really brief. It's possible that that some of you in the call it is possible that some of you here have more connection to the East West Center than I do. It's been here for some time and was again started in the 60s as a post-Cold War institution, specifically by the national government to increase communication, connection, collaboration, research, education across the East and the West, hence the East West Center. And I believe that mission is as important as ever in this particular moment of the vision is a peaceful, prosperous, and just Asia Pacific. And the East West Center does that through, I would say, sort of 3 main ways. collaborative research around emerging and critical issues in the region. We're doing a lot of research right now, for example, on COVID and communicable diseases. We have in our center one of the premier communicable disease researchers. So research. Another way we do that is supporting people who are getting an education. Currently through UH, they become a home, we become a home for them. And people from across the world. One of them is here on the call, Cameron Lee. She will be helping us in a bit, but she's an example of East West Center housing folks getting higher degrees. And in the past, people who may not have had those options anywhere else. And then the third area that we work on is my area, which is sort of continuous learning and adult learning and professional development. We do that across a lot of areas, including with journalists, with educators, and then my work with mid-career professionals from across the Asia Pacific. Yeah, that's a little more about the East West Center. I think Hawaii can be proud that we host that institution, even with the challenges that a big institution like East West Center faces. Thanks for giving me a little opportunity to say more.
I have a quick question for Scott from Alan Okinaka. He says, as a Rotarian, I attended 3 workshops in Hilo. Then he said, I met Kona and didn't find an alignment because the SEEDS initiative focused on self-schools and community projects. Has that changed?
Yeah, thanks so much, Alan. This is really good feedback for us to consider as we're always trying to improve our delivery and our message. Our workshops are still pretty heavy on self, schools, and communities. To be honest, the Kona workshops were before I came on board, so I can't say exactly what was addressed in those workshops. But yeah, I'd probably agree that our workshops are still pretty heavy on self, schools, and community, maybe largely because the majority of our participants have been educators. And I suspect that the Kona workshops in particular, I remember we worked directly with the complex area on that, the DOE complex area. So, this is a really long answer of saying, I don't know, but this is good feedback for us to consider as we design our next workshop series in the fall. I did want to add that, yes, we do have a workshop series coming up in the fall. I believe our first one's scheduled for sometime in September, but I should know that, I should check. But we will be marketing it over the next couple months or so. It's still pretty early. So yeah, feel free to go to our website, seedsofpeace.org, seeds with a C, yeah. Sign up for our newsletter at the bottom of the homepage. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram if you folks have. And yeah, we'll be announcing enrollment. It's going to be free. So it's always a good thing.
Hey, Scott, I may be able to help out with the Kona question because I was actually one of the facilitators back in the day.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jose. I'm with the Matsunaga Institute, but I'm also a facilitator with Seeds of Peace, and I've been with them for quite some time. And I think a lot of it is the grant, and the grant was very much educator focused. And so that was kind of led the way as to how they were structured. Yes, our population tends to be within that population. I will share, though, that within the Matsunaga Institute, a lot of those facilitators and the founders are actually either faculty or adjunct faculty who teach within the Matsunaga Institute, both our undergraduate and graduate courses on peace and conflict resolution. And many of us, including myself, embed the Seeds of Peace framework into our courses, getting our students to learn about the Seeds of Peace framework and then apply it within not only their community. And so one example is a conflict management for educators course. Although, yes, the title may say educators, I get students who are not educators. I get nursing majors, I get people who are doctors, I get engineers, because the framework is really about envisioning, taking proactive steps within whatever issue may be happening in your community that you want to try to address. And so with that, the further framework, which we can further talk about, it is possible to align it with other issues in other communities. So I just kind of want to throw that little tidbit out there.
Thanks, Jose.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jose. Let me mention, Jose Barzola will be helping us. I'm going to step down in a moment, and Jose is going to become your host. But before I do that, I'd like to recognize Salah Sweet, who is a fellow member, honorary member of mine in the Rotary E-Club of World Peace. And Salah has a question for both Gretchen and Scott, and for the rest of us, really. Salah, please go ahead. And the rest of you, if you have questions you'd like to ask directly to the speakers, just let me know in the chat, because I can't see everyone's raised hands. Let me know in the chat, and I'll recognize you, and you can ask away. So Salah,
Yeah, thank you.
fun.
Yes. Thank you. I've been told that my internet connection makes me go out sometimes, so I apologize for that. I've been working with Peace Jam for about 3 years, and I'm very excited about what they do with the youth, and I guess especially for you, Scott, maybe even connecting with them and sharing insights about how you are approaching the youth. And they work with teachers, but each teacher then establishes a club in a school or another organization. So they're really interacting with the students as well, teaching them peacekeeping skills. And then each club, the students decide what community project would work best for their community. And they do a project in their community building peace. So I've worked with that in Ghana, and I've worked with it here in Seattle with the Boys and Girls Club. And I just wondered if you knew about them, and if there might be something the two of you could learn from each other about working with youth. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, Salah. I haven't heard of them, but yes, I'm positive there is a lot that we could learn from them. So I have that. I have a running to-do list with like 47 things on the list right now, and it's right at the bottom right now. So I definitely plan to give them a Google and reach out. And Salah, if you have a contact that you think I should touch base with, yeah, feel free to put that in the chat, and I can take that down. But yeah, thank you very much for sharing that.
I don't have it. I don't have it right now, but if you could put your email in the chat, I will get it to you.
Good idea.
Yeah,
Good idea. Okay.
Scott, you could just Google them. Peace Jam is really something. They are supported by the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize winners, the elders, and they do a great program. For I actually experienced at the Rotary Convention in Sao Paulo, and it was awesome. So
Great,
listen,
great.
I'm going to step down now and turn the hosting duties over to Jose Barzola, who you heard from a bit before, from the Matsunaga Institute of Peace. So Jose is going to be, Scott and Gretchen are going to run a workshop. It is called Courageous Conversations. And please enjoy and take over, you guys. I'm going to step back.
All right. Thanks so much, Mark. And thanks everyone for those great questions. As Gretchen and I touched on earlier, we believe peace is action. So we're going to take some immediate action over the next hour. We felt, oh, what a wasted opportunity if me and Gretchen just talk to you folks the entire time. We want to engage you folks and get you folks taking action. I think it goes without saying that these are incredibly divided times. We have very polarizing opinions across party lines, across cultures, across races, across religions, across nations and parts of the world, but also across family members and peers and neighbors as well. And our thought is that if we're ever going to create a peaceful world, capital P-E-A-C-E, I guess, for us in the next generations, building peace with our neighbors and fellow community members and family members almost feels like a prerequisite. tackling this bigger version of peace and world peace. So our partnership team, which includes Gretchen, it also includes Cameron Lee. I don't know if you folks can see Cameron, but Cameron, give a wave. If you folks are on gallery view, you'll see Cameron. Cameron is one of our team members from the East West Center Leadership Program. And Jose Barzola, who you folks met. Jose is one of the leaders at the UH Matsunaga Institute for Peace. So we came together and we designed sort of a framework or a process, and we're calling it Courageous Conversations to kind of continue with the C theme. And we ran a session maybe like 3 or 4 weeks ago with about 100 students from all over the world. And we got really good feedback. So I think we're onto, we think we're onto something here. So we'd like to do that again with you folks right now. Very, very briefly, and Jose, if you don't mind sharing your screen so we can see the slides. Awesome. Thanks, Jose, or Cameron. Not sure who's doing this.
Cameron's
Thanks, Cameron. So Cameron, just skip to the next slide. All right. So very briefly, I just want to talk about some of the research we pulled. Much thanks to Cameron for pulling this research, and we kind of took this research and created this experience for you folks. It's inspired by an effort called Human Library, and Human Library recognized the need for safe spaces to build connection during these disconnected, divided times. They have a focus on breaking down stereotypes, to unjudge, it's a word that I use all the time now, and to ask difficult questions. We're also inspired by the Fierce Civility Project, and feel free to Google any of these. The Fierce Civility Project recognized the need to break the gridlock caused by extreme polarization and effectively shift from breaking and othering to bridging and alliance building in order to find unity and solutions in unlikely places. We were inspired by StoryCorps, one of my favorite podcasts, and they recognized the need to test a theory of psychology known as the contact hypothesis. And the contact hypothesis suggests that contact between people of different backgrounds under certain conditions can melt away conflict. It doesn't instantly melt away the conflict, but it's a start. And then we were also just inspired by the need to give others these concrete strategies and tools to build connection and have these civil conversations, these courageous conversations, not only for this session, but to take to your daily lives, to take to your dinner table tonight, to take to the next beer with the guys as somebody starts talking about politics, right? So yeah, that's why we're doing this. Gretchen, can I hand it over to you?
Absolutely, yeah. So we have some ground rules or things we encourage everyone to agree to as we move forward. And as educators, all of us, Scott, Gretchen, Jose, and Cameron, we all, we tend to put ground rules at the beginning of all the work that we do, just so we know the space that we're coming into. These are adapted from another inspiration, the Free Thought Forum. Encourage you to look that too. And they're basically these, we offer these 6. One is just be respectful of other people's time, including sort of managing the time we speak, and then encouraging us not to, not interrupting, and understanding that, the time we have together is a gift, and it's unlimited. I mean, it's not unlimited, it is short. The second is that when we have courageous conversations, there may be ideas that we disagree with, and it's okay to criticize those ideas, but not the people, right? So we all can come to an open discussion, knowing that we will be, this can be a safe space, that our ideas might be criticized, but we as people for having those ideas will not be criticized. I guess that's like valuing first everybody's humanity, right? A third is avoiding arguments that are fallacious. So when I make a bold claim, I should also have the reasoning behind why I'm making that claim. A fourth is being open to scrutiny and diversity of opinion. I mean, that's what makes us so strong as a people is that we have different ways of approaching ideas and different experiences in life. And when we can be open to people's opinions and backgrounds, we can have courageous conversations. But along with that, we should never feel pressure to share. There's no obligation to touch on a subject if we don't feel comfortable with that. So no obligation. And finally, try, as we go through this experience together, we're going to try to follow the facilitators, in this case, Jose and Cameron's timed prompts. Again, knowing that our time here today in particular is limited, but in general, we have precious little time with one another. So here's some ground rules that we've offered when we've run these in the past, and we offer them today to the community gathered here. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks,
back over to you.
Gretchen. Thank you, thank you. So we're gonna be breaking you folks out into small breakout rooms of 3, some might have 2, and we're gonna be broadcasting sort of a scaffolding of questions ranging from light questions to medium questions to difficult questions. And there's a lot of intention behind that. When you meet someone for the first time, the first question you ask usually isn't, what is your thought on Donald Trump? Or what are your thoughts on nuclear disarmament? You know, typically, I think it's healthy to start with, talking about food and talking about your background and starting off with lighter subjects, getting to know the person, feeling comfortable with that person before we move into what are your thoughts on Donald Trump and what are your thoughts on nuclear disarmament. So know that that's done with intention. We're going to be broadcasting prompts and time restrictions. We're going to try to be very clear with those broadcasts. Every 2 minutes, you're going to receive a broadcast message with a specific prompt. And the broadcast message will look something like this. I'm going to throw this into the chat just so you folks can see what it will look like. Okay, so you'll receive a prompt that looks like something like this. Start with person number 1. Share the story of your name, your whole name. You have 2 minutes. And then 2 minutes later, you may see a prompt that looks like this. Switch to person 2. So if you're in a group of 2 or 3, you're gonna switch when we send this broadcast, okay? So just an example. Again, because you're in groups of 3, you're gonna have to kind of budget your time accordingly. And again, we're gonna remind you how much time each person has. Keep in mind that this is sort of a microcosm of a full conversation, and in a real conversation, you wouldn't have time limits and someone telling you to switch. But we also think this is a good thing to keep in mind of. It's never nice when somebody dominates the conversation and talks for an hour straight and only gives the other person 2 minutes to talk, right? Okay. We are going to ask you to consider, not a requirement, but please consider keeping your cameras on, just because I think being able to see the person is nice. And in these Zoom times, seeing someone on camera is the next best thing to seeing someone in person. But again, only if you're comfortable. And finally, once we break out, and we're going to do that immediately right after I say this, once we break out, feel free to introduce yourself to the other person or other 2 people. And give us about 30 seconds to 1 minute to kind of get settled in. And in about 30 seconds to 1 minute, we will be sending that first prompt, and then you can get started, okay? One more thing, if anyone finds themselves in a breakout room by themselves, go ahead and click leave breakout room and we'll reassign you, okay? This might get a little complicated, going through Zoom is always a little tough, especially with breakout rooms, but we're gonna try our best. Feel free to use your phone or screenshot this screen right here. These are the prompts, but again, we are also going to be sending each of these prompts through broadcast messages. Okay. Okay. So Cameron, Jose, whoever has hosting privileges, we are ready to break out. And this will be about a 30-minute activity.
Thank you, Scott. I'm just trying to make sure we don't lose anybody else. Otherwise, I don't want anyone to be left in the room with like 1 person. So there we go, I think.
As you do that, Jose, I just want to appreciate everyone for trying this with us. Again, we did this with 100 students and got really great feedback. So here's a perfect example of ways we can build peace at an individual level. So thanks in advance for doing this with us today.
All right. Everyone should be going into a breakout room shortly. See you all soon.
Question.
Did you have a question? Oh, I think she went into the room. I put our team in the same room so you all can just ignore it. Mark Harbison was listed twice, so I reached out to him. He said that he doesn't know why, so I left the other Mark Harbison. I guess
It's because somebody else is logged in with his link. He must have shared his link with somebody else.
I'm going to move that person to another room. Thank you so much for that, Doug. That makes sense.
And if you're still not seeing an invite, go ahead and click breakout rooms on the bottom of your screen, and it should an invite should pop up.
I realize we have some people that showed up that were not assigned. I'll figure it out right now.
Yeah, thanks everyone for your patience as we do this. It's just like being at an actual conference. Takes you a while to get to the room.
Oh, we have Alan. I don't want Alan to be left out. I'm just going to put him in the room with 4 people. So he'll be 4.
Room 3 only has
Thanks,
one.
Jose.
Okay, hey, Alan.
Hi.
I don't want you to feel left out now.
Yeah, room 3 only has 1 person, Jose.
Oh.
I'll move
Hannah
to.
has 2.
Oh, it's good.
Oh, room. No, yeah, I had a number. It's just some people take a little bit to accept. So, oh wait, where did I move Alan? Oh no, I moved Alan.
Put him in room 11.
Yeah.
There's only 1 person there.
Oh, maybe that person hasn't accepted it yet. That's why. Oh wait, there is.
Scott, I'm sorry. I left meeting and come back. Something happened with my chat and I cannot participate. Even I sending my opinion. My chat doesn't work. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Okay. No, you can stay in here with us. We can figure that out.
I'm gonna invite you to room 11 and see if that works. You let me know. I just realized room 11 has 2 people. There's 5 people in there, but 2 of them have not selected to join, so they're probably not connected to what's happening right now. It's just the 4 of us out here, right? Nobody else? Oh no, we still have, yeah, Vicky and Tom and Peter. There is.
Yeah. Well, Jose, we don't need to wait for everyone else to join. Oh.
Okay. Well,
Hey Siri, I was wrong.
oh, hi Tom. How are you? Let me just...
Hey Siri, I was wrong.
Maybe.
What you mean by?
There you go.
Hey Siri, I was wrong.
And Cameron, you're keeping time, yeah?
I can assign you to a room, Tom, in a minute. Sorry about that. Okay, move Tom over. Ray hasn't joined.
And Jose, keep in mind, 3 is the max per room, yeah?
Yeah, I can't open up new rooms right now.
Time-wise.
I can't open up new rooms right now. So the people who
That's
haven't
perfect.
I'll move them to our room, which is the only room that doesn't have people in it. And hopefully if they decide to join.
Yeah, sounds good.
Looks good.
But I think they're probably busy doing something else. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks for doing all that.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. And then Cameron's keeping time, so.
Yeah, we went, oh wait, the breakout rooms is gonna, I didn't even do the next announcement because I was trying to figure that out.
Well, you did the first one, Jose, and then Cameron will let you know when to do the next one.
45 more seconds.
Every 2 minutes, and it's already, there's only 2 minutes left. So if they haven't switched already.
Wait, what?
Don't. So here, I just sent it over. Okay. The situation is that they got 6 minutes. I spent the first 2 minutes trying to rearrange people and put people into rooms again because they had logged out, logged back in. So I didn't send the first announcement until 2 minutes in. I'm hoping people were paying attention, so they got it. So it's okay. It's all
Okay,
good.
well, I'll tell you when to send. So like I started the 2-minute timer when you sent the first one.
There's a timer right now. There's 1 minute left on the top. I can tell from my end. You should see on the screen. You don't see the timer of how much time they have. 59 seconds left in that room. They're all coming back soon.
Oh, they shouldn't be coming back, Jose. They should be staying in their rooms.
Oh, because I thought it was like 6 minutes. Okay, and then they're
No, yeah, they stay in there for the whole time.
Hey, you guys, can you assign me to a room there? There was another device in the room here, and I didn't know it was here, and that was the thing was talking about Siri.
Got it.
So I thought it was your problem. No,
I send it over. Okay, everybody. I did assign Tom.
Okay.
Okay, so everyone's
Can
gonna.
you make it so they don't come back?
I'm not allowed to at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're all gonna come back.
Well, they can come back and I can just relaunch them again. But next time I'll relaunch it for 24 minutes then, right? That's the plan.
Don't even set a time limit. Just or
It
way
just
overshoot it.
I just click keep breakout rooms open. So
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So now you just keep time, I guess. And
yeah.
So it's been 6 minutes already, or.
So we do it based on when the prompts are sent.
You know what? I'll send the third prompt now because I already sent the second one. So.
Okay.
We're
So
okay.
send the third one and then we'll start the time.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay. So now I'll tell you when 2 minutes have passed.
Although some of these people may have already chatted because there's some groups that just has 2 people.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Whew.
All right. Awesome. Good job, guys. Gosh, breakout rooms are a little stressful.
They look really good though.
Do you think I should pause the recording while we're doing this? Because it's recording our room. I'm gonna pause it.
Jose.
Oh, no,
Yep.
no countdown?
Oh.
Okay.
Yep, we're ready. We're ready.
Okay. So you get an extra 15 seconds before they leave the breakout room. So they're coming. All right. Who's Scott talking now?
Gretchen.
Oh, Gretchen. Okay. We'll pin her. So she's like, no. I forgot.
Hey, welcome back, everyone.
Thank you.
I know that can sometimes be a jolting experience to come back all of a sudden. So I'll do a little bit more talking so you can all arrive.
Oh, we're back to Gretchen. We're back to you, Gretchen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, we're back to you. I was listening to you, Gretchen, about the lovely words you were saying. I'm happy.
Thank you. Well,
If we
thank you
have
very
any,
much.
let me tell you something. If we have any peace seminar or forum in our part of the area in the world here in Beirut, in Lebanon.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, I will be asking you to participate.
I would
Okay.
love to participate. I have only been to Beirut once, and it was just to the airport and then over the mountains into Syria. And my goal is that you invite me so I can come there in person someday.
I will. Let me tell
Okay.
you something, Gretchen. On the chat box, please put your email.
I will do so. No worries.
Because we might have a forum or a conference about peace. Peter Kale will be in, and I like your ideas. I would like you to be in, and of course the third person also, the young guy, should be in also.
The young guy, Scott.
Scott, that's right.
Nice.
His name
Wonderful.
is Scott.
His name is Scott. He's here. Thank you so much, George. That's very generous.
I took the email of Scott. when he put it on the chat box.
Wonderful.
Thank
I will
you.
send
Thanks,
you
George.
I will send you mine, George. And what an enthusiastic, thank you. That's an enthusiastic welcome back. So welcome back, everyone.
Gretchen, if you look now at the chat box, my email is over there, georgemazar@hotmail.com.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Okay, great.
So now you have my email, because we were on the other in the chat in the other box talking to another person. So my email is over there.
Okay, wonderful. I will find your email and I will reach out to you,
and
George.
I want
Thank
you to send me your email.
I will do that. I'll make sure I'll do that right away. George, thank you. Thanks for your enthusiasm. It was
I
really
like
lovely.
your style. You are active as me. You are and the way you talk is an active way.
Thank you, George. Well, as Scott said,
hi.
we believe peace building is active work, and it can be sweaty work, and it can be
okay.
sometimes uncomfortable. So you had a chance to
Yeah.
experience that in Breakout, everyone. Thanks for joining back here. And again, thanks for trying this out with us. We know that you may have joined this conference not knowing we were going to put you to work, but we wanted to share an example of some of the work that we all do, Jose, Scott, myself, and Cameron, in our work of building peace at the community level, and illustrate how we individually and collectively can build community, build trust, which are incredibly important foundations to positive peace and inoculation in some ways against violent conflict. So again, thanks for trying this out. Welcome back from your breakout groups. I'd like to open up this conversation, do a bit of a debrief, and just ask how was that experience? You can write in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just share some short comments. How was that experience for you in your breakouts of 2 or 3 or maybe 4? Anyone want to share? I can see Carol. Carol said she had a great time with George and Chemo Jim, which is great. Anyone else have some thoughts? I can't see everyone's hand, so if you would like to unmute, Natalie, I see you. Please unmute yourself if you would like, and share. How was that for you?
Oh, wonderful. I enjoy my colleagues, and during that conversation, I learned about myself also, about my name. I never thought about that. Yes, and you know what? It was sincere, frank conversation in small room, and I understand my people were from Hawaii. I'm from Oregon, originate from Armenia, but we have many things in common. As a human, I'm so happy for that small time with this wonderful, my 2 colleagues, 2 people. Yes, thank you very much. I enjoy it.
Natalie, I'm so glad to hear that. And you mentioned a lot of really key things. One is how the experience of finding things in common, and how this structured conversation is to help make that happen, right? And that we have a chance to reveal a little bit of ourselves slowly. First starts a little easier about names, reveal a bit of ourselves, and then find our connections and have some opportunities to hear from other people. Anyone else want to share what experience was like? Yeah.
Hi, this is Carol.
Hi, Carol.
So I had a really great time with the gentleman, and Chemo is a telemedicine guy, and they were able to connect globally. I mean, across the board, they're going to exchange medical information and equipment. And I'm actually promised to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to join them on their WhatsApp call. So
wonderful.
So it was just really nice talking to them, and to learn that Beirut and Lebanon is not what we just see on TV. So I think that's what this actually forum is, or generally just talking to people outside of our general communities will help us do, bridge those gaps, and so it was really a pleasure. And
thanks.
And in general, just an awesome conversation. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. It's so lovely to feel your energy toward your roommates, your breakout roommates, and how nice. And what I really love, Carol, and what you hit on so touched on so importantly, I'll get to you in a sec. Touched on so importantly is like you were able to break down maybe a preconception you had in this case about Beirut or about Lebanon. And, like imagine if we can do that in more spaces in our lives, what that might make possible. So thanks for sharing.
Sorry
George,
to
please.
interrupt.
I see your hand up. Great.
Yeah, sorry
George.
to interrupt. I say, Doc Vincent, I tell him, yes, we have already 12 containers coming from Turoni Farra, Beirut Cedars. Where is Doug? If Doug is here, let me see him.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, great. Yes, you are right. We received them, Ronnie Farra and Beirut Cedars. Ronnie is a close friend of mine. I'm a district governor nominee. I'll be working with him and he's doing an excellent job. I know that we have the containers in Beirut of medical devices.
Give him my greetings. For the benefit of the rest of you, my Rotary Club has been sending relief goods to Beirut, Lebanon because of their explosion. And so far from Canada, we've sent 12 containers to Beirut to help them. So,
wow.
Yes, I agree with you.
We'll take that as a side. We'll take that as a side tag, George. Let's get back to peace here.
That's right. And you've been dealing with AGOP also, with the president of the club AGOP, huh?
Yes.
George.
Good work.
George, I'm gonna move on to Linda because Linda had some comments she wanted to share. Linda, please go ahead. If you unmute yourself.
Yes, I did. We had a small group, local group, but known them forever. The ideas that came out in our brief discussion about engaging new youth members and professionals who don't know much about Rotary, how we do that and how we use the projects that we've got to attract activity among folks that don't know anything about Rotary but would like to roll their sleeves up. It was really valuable. So no matter the fact that we already knew each other, suddenly all these ideas started to come out of our brains.
Thanks for
so
sharing
it
that.
stimulated braining.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. To the rest of you.
I would like to share.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, myself Nagjoti from India. I'm really very much happy with my group, actually with Bellens, Salah. We all three, I found so many things are common in us. And we really believe in the peace, and we really believe whenever the negative situation comes, at that time we are feeling more stronger, and we are trying to help and try to spread the peace with the help of the food. We are trying to spread the peace with the help of communication, positivity, as well as not doing any partiality. There should not be any richness or any poor this thing. The subject matters, and at the same time it is most important to act on the important issue rather than the discussion on any other which caste or which community. So spreading peace is the basically common in all of us. Thanks a lot. And I enjoyed the conversation, and literally not feeling that it is from different countries that we people are communicating. We are human beings, and we are really open up like anything, and it is really too good to exchange the knowledge and information.
Thanks for sharing that, Nagjoti. And you touched on something that we also find in this process, that the supposed barriers or the things that we might think separate us, when we have a chance to share and reveal pieces of ourselves, we feel very, very connected. And that's why we see Courageous Conversations as a really great example of how we can each individually and collectively build peace. You did this, and you feel this after just 25 minutes of conversation. That's pretty impressive, and without even really being prepared for it. So that's pretty amazing. Anyone else want to share what that experience was like, or if something surprised you, or as we move on, if you have a question about the process at all? So any more thoughts on the experience, if something surprised you, or any questions you might have?
Yeah, Gretchen, this is Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hi. one of the things, I was in a group with Natalie, and one of the things that was subtle in my mind, but it became pronounced, was that our society, our economy, our business models, everything, they're really designed for a win and lose situation. And win and lose becomes the foundation for competition. And when you have that mindset, then you have divisive comments about each other. So competition in the business world, the political two-party system, and sometimes even 3- and 4-party systems, we have contests. A good example is the Olympics. You know, we've gotten to the point where a person who doesn't get the gold medal feel that even if they got the silver medal, they're losers because they were second place. And that's kind of mindset we developed. And of course, the statistics. Today is a good example. There was a lot of statistics, but what it does really is it divides people's thinking by seeing all, you know, how many of who is doing what and how great they are or how way behind they are. All of that becomes a template in our mind to think divisively, and we start generalizing and we become very judgmental. And I think these are the things that create an unpeaceful situation. I like your idea of positive peace, but I think there's another category called unconscious peace, where we don't even think about what is positive peace or a negative peace, and we don't even know what peace is after a while. So in our conversation, that kind of popped into my mind, and I thought I'd share that. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing those comments, Alan. And you, the beginning of your comments, you talked about sort of creating opposite sides and how statistics can do that, or how preconceptions can do that. And so important as we think about peace is understanding how when we other people, when we put other people in a category that we don't belong to, or we separate ourselves out from other people, that's a step in then what allows for us to be violent toward people, right? Like we have to see someone as fundamentally different from us for that to happen. And so breaking that down, it's really important. Really appreciate your comments, Alan. Anyone else want to either share something about the experience, something that surprised them, or a question? Sala.
You mentioned recently that we didn't know this was going to happen. I think maybe that's a good way to start. Does when in your experience, is it helpful to not tell people ahead of time that they're going to do this? Because if you tell people ahead of time, they do all this thinking about how am I going to handle this and what am I going to do and what is this person?
That's a really.
But if you just open it up all of a sudden, does that make it?
That's a really good question. Scott, I think I heard you maybe were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to take a stab at that. You know, yeah, that's a great question. I didn't really think about this, but as you're asking it, I realized, you know, there's a reason why we call this courageous conversations and not courageous prepared speeches, right? We're getting the real versions of ourselves, the authentic versions of ourselves. So yeah, I think you're onto something, Sal. And again, we haven't done this too many times, so we really value this feedback. We're learning alongside you all. I also just want to add that, you know, there's so much value in having conversation rather than prepared statements or debate. You know, rather than asking, are you a Republican or a Democrat? We're asking questions like, what values inform your political views, right? Let's have conversations, authentic conversations about those shared values and connect over these shared values before we go towards the more difficult disagreements, right? And that's not to say talking about the disagreements is not important. It definitely is. But I think the order and intention of the way we have these conversations is important. Starting with this foundation of shared values and curiosity towards one another and interest towards one another and connection with one another is a really important foundation to having those bigger conversations about what we disagree on. Because as humans, I think we find that we agree on more things than than we disagree on, even though it's the disagreements that make it to the news and make it to
Nice.
our conversations. So
Nice, Scott. Thanks. Yeah. And I think in a courageous conversation, we give space for finding common ground, which is important. It's why we start with easier questions that are very much just about us as people, and then, you know, continue to be about us, but move into things that might take a little more courage. I see Ari has her hand up. Ari, do you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to share. First of all, I would like to thank you for this conversations. I think it was facilitating that. I think it was really amazing. I was very lucky to be in a group with Reem and as yours, and all of us shared a lot of we shared a lot of similar feelings and understanding, you know, of the world, and like yours completely impressed us, being like a world traveler who lived in like 104 countries, and there was something we were so impressed, and a lot of the questions that were asked, and first of all made us feel in the first place a little bit confused maybe how I approach this, because there's so many different different sides to those questions. But then we definitely relate to the topics of being immigrants in this country, some of us being immigrants in this country, and how we perceive the culture and the politics here, and also the values that we all share. And some of us shared about coming from the perspective of community, and how sometimes big decision made, you know, up there in a governmental level or international level affects many small communities. So I think we had really great conversation, and we learned a lot about ourselves, each other's names, because our names are quite unique too. And that was really beautiful. So I don't know if, you know, Reem, yours would like something to add, but yeah.
Thanks
really,
for
thank
sharing.
you so much.
That's so great. Wonderful. See your thumbs up, yours. That's great. I just want to check in with Mark. Mark, do we have a stop time? Can you remind us what it is?
Actually, I'm thinking Peter is here now, so I'd sort of like to move into his presentation.
Great. So let me just take a few more minutes, because we have a treat for you all. We have created a file. We just, Cameron created this and has just shared it in the chat. That goes over some of the questions that we, or the format that we use, some of our, the resources that we mentioned. We hope that you take this and keep it somewhere, refer to it, and maybe use it to try your own courageous conversations. And that can be, courageous conversations can be with people you already know well, or people you'd like to know better. We encourage you to try this. And we also have a link to an evaluation. Cameron has just posted that in the chat. An evaluation particularly of this activity. We would really like any feedback you're willing to give us on this. And Mark, thank you for taking the risk with us to allow us to do this. I know it was a little different than what you expected. I'm glad that it turned out well, and I'm really, on behalf of the whole team, just really grateful that we could be here with you today in this really important space, and look forward to the next time. Thank you. And Cameron and Jose, thanks for doing all the background work.
Yeah, thank you, Cameron.
A little background on that. When Scott and Gretchen first said, they said, yes, we want about 50 breakout rooms. And Naomi and I both said, what? 50? But it was amazing. It's a very interesting experience to have, you know, 2 or 3 people in a room, and have a, you know, even in a very short time, to have a fairly intense conversation. So yeah, and it was fascinating. It was a really wonderful workshop, and I enjoyed it immensely. And I fortunately had a wonderful partner, Rick Tabor. We had a great time. It's sort of like talking to each other's choir, but we had a wonderful time. So thank you so much, Gretchen, Scott, Carmen, and Jose. Jose, you are awesome. Jose did all the technical work, and he's the man. So thank you all. So I would like to switch gears here and introduce Peter Kyle. And I don't think Peter Kyle needs an introduction for a lot of you, but Peter Kyle is Mr. Rotary Peace, and that is no exaggeration. Peter's commitment to Rotary goes way, way, way back. He has done almost everything. More recently, he's just become a director of Rotary International from zones 32-33. The amazing thing about Peter is that despite his long and distinguished history in peace, he is still at it. He is still working for peace. He is still innovating. He's still coming up with new ideas. Most recently, Peter has been the Dean of the Rotary Representative Network. The Rotary Representative Network is a group of Rotary ambassadors who network with the United Nations, with United Nations agencies, with other major foundations. They sort of form the core of the Rotary Diplomatic Group, and they are active all over the world. Some of the most distinguished Rotarians in the world are part of that network, and Peter has just stepped down as the Dean of that group. He has been responsible for Rotary partnerships. He's responsible for some of the great strategic partnerships we have, not only with peace groups, but also other NGOs and other important partners in strategic activities of Rotary. I'll let Peter tell his own story, and especially about his most recent activities. Just a little background. Peter is a native of New Zealand. After law school, he joined the World Bank, had a distinguished and exciting career there. But I really think that Peter's real career as a Rotary leader, and I can't think of anyone to better represent our organization. So Peter, please share your wisdom with us.
Well, what an introduction. That was over the top, but I appreciate it. Very generous, very gracious, overly generous. But I'm delighted to be with you. Honored to be invited to address the Global Peace Forum. Congratulations to you, Mark, and your team for putting this together. These things take a lot of preparation. And I think this has been a wonderful event. I've been in and out of it today. My daughter is in the process of buying a house, and fathers are needed in situations like this. So I heard most of what Reem had to say. I listened, of course, to Al, and I heard most of Gretchen and some of Scott. I didn't manage to participate in the breakout sessions, but I regret that because I heard some of the feedback, and the feedback was incredibly positive. So whatever it was, Gretchen and Scott, that you organized, all credit to you, because obviously there were some very intense, but very meaningful and memorable conversations, courageous conversations. So Mark has asked me to talk a little bit about two things. One, the Rotary's role historically as a peace-building organization, and then a specific peace initiative, which I'm rolling out in zones 33 and 34, my part of the world, which extends from the north of Pennsylvania down through Pittsburgh and all the southern states, Virginia, Maryland, Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, most of the Caribbean, and 3 countries in South America. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. I do want to recognize quite a few familiar faces on the call. I see Sharon Heinrich. Rudy was here. Mike Caruso, Doug Vincent, lots of very familiar faces. And of course, it's always lovely to see Reem. I think it's the second or third time I've looked at the daffodils behind her, and she assures me that they're not real, but they look real. And Reem did a great job, as she always does. I've heard her speak on many occasions, very articulate, very charming, and always lots of substance. So well done, Reem. So let me start with a little bit of history. As you know, Rotary started in 1905, grew fairly slowly at first. By 1910, there were still only 16 Rotary clubs. And the focus at that time was very much on service. But the international issue at that time was the possibility that war might break out in Europe. And sure enough, in 1914, Germany and England declared war on each other. And as I'm sure you've been taught, this was a terrible war. A lot of destruction, a lot of deaths, a lot of injury. It went on for 4 years. Finally, when the war finished in 1918, the focus of Rotary became very much, how can we ensure that an event like they just experienced never happens again? Lots of meetings were held, culminating in the International Convention in Edinburgh in 1921, when Rotarians adopted a resolution calling on Rotarians to promote international understanding, goodwill, and peace. And those words, international understanding, goodwill, and peace, have been incorporated in the official object of Rotary. They form the basis of the Rotary Foundation. This year, we celebrate the 100th anniversary of Rotary's focus on peace. So it goes right back to those very early days of Rotary's history. In the 1920s and 30s, Rotary grew very quickly, and I'd like to share just a few statistics with you. In 1914, we had 100 clubs. 4 years later, we had 400 clubs. 3 years later, 1921, we reached club number 1,000, the Rotary Club of York in the United Kingdom. 4 years later, we doubled, 2,000 clubs. Club number 2,000 was Ketchikan in Alaska. During the period of the Depression, the late 20s, early 30s, the rate of growth slowed somewhat, but even so, in 1936, we reached 4,000 clubs, Hanover, Pennsylvania. And 3 years later, in 1939, we reached 5,000 Rotary clubs. Club 5,000 was Rockmart in Georgia. So at that time, there were roughly 150,000 Rotarians. It was an enormous organization and extremely influential. Of course, in those days, to be a Rotarian, you had to be a male, and we've since got rid of that impediment, but you also had to be sort of a respected member of your vocation or your profession. The classification system was applied rather more strictly than is currently the case. So when Rotarians met at their district conference, this was truly a meeting of local community movers and shakers. And when Rotarians met internationally, it was an extremely prestigious and influential gatherings. Nowadays, there are hundreds of NGOs, non-governmental organizations. But before the Second World War, there were no NGOs. Rotary was, to all intents and purposes, the first non-governmental organization. In 1940, Rotarians met in Havana, Cuba. I might just say that at that time, there were 58 Rotary clubs in Cuba. Currently, there are none, although we hope that that will change before too long. And at that convention, Rotarians passed a resolution calling, amongst other things, for respect for human rights. That was the first time those words, respect for human rights, had entered into the international lexicon. And that became the basis for the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, signed in 1948. 2 years later, in the middle of the Second World War, a number of senior Rotarians met in London. They were concerned about the impact of the war on education, scientific research, cultural monuments and traditions and values. They adopted a resolution which, a few years later, became the basis for UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. 2 years later, in 1944, after Prime Minister Churchill and President Truman had decided that the time had come to establish an organization which would prohibit war for all time, Rotary was one of a very small number of organizations invited to send lawyers and other experts to work alongside officials from China, the former Soviet Union, the United States, and United Kingdom. And when the United Nations Charter was signed in San Francisco in June of 1945, 49 out of the 800 delegates were Rotarians. The following year, the United Nations decided to establish an internship program. The idea was to bring young students from all over the world to New York to observe the workings of this new international body. Great idea, but there was no money in the budget. What did they do? They approached Rotary, and Rotary made a grant of $18,000 to fund the first United Nations internship program. So from the very earliest days of the United Nations, Rotary was working alongside this amazing organization. In the 1950s and 60s and 70s, the relationship really went into abeyance. This was the time of the Cold War, and there were other priorities. But in the 1980s, Rotary reconnected with the United Nations when it embarked upon the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And as you'll know, we partnered with UNICEF, with WHO, with CDC, the Center for Diseases Control, and then subsequently the Gates Foundation, and more recently Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines. And since then, Rotary's had a very close relationship, particularly with UNICEF and WHO. Most of the money that is raised by Rotarians for the polio initiative flows through to UNICEF, $50 million a year. And Rotary is very much involved in the oversight of the polio initiative. There are many polio-related committees, and Rotary is represented on all of them. So we have a very close relationship. And I might just tell you that this year, so far, there have only been 2 cases of the wild polio virus. It's extraordinary. In the last 6 months, there have only been 10 cases. So we are crossing our fingers. Each time we have another case of polio, we think, we hope, we pray that that is the very last case of polio. And it may well be that we have in fact seen the last case of the wild polio virus. Anyway, I divert. Back onto peace and United Nations. In the late 1980s, Rotarians started reaching out more intentionally to some of the organs of the United Nations, UNICEF, UNESCO, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, United Nations Environment Programme, the UN Commission on Women. So in 1990, the Rotary International Board established the Rotary Representative Network. And Mark gave you a bit of an idea about that. This body oversees Rotary's relationships with the United Nations and other international organizations. Currently, there are 16 entities in the network: UNICEF, UNESCO, the ones I've just mentioned, plus other non-UN agencies such as the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the African Development Bank, the European Union, the Commonwealth of Nations, the Arab League, the African Union. And Rotary has appointed senior Rotarians as our representatives, our ambassadors with a small a, to the cities in which those entities are located. So we have 2 representatives in Rome, 2 in Paris at UNESCO, 2 in Brussels at the European Union, 2 in London, 3 in Geneva, where the European headquarters of the United Nations is based, 6 in New York, 4 in Washington, DC, and others in Cairo, in Addis Ababa, in Abidjan, in Manila. Initially, the focus of the representatives was to promote the profile of Rotary within the higher echelons of the management of those organizations. But more recently, It's more of a two-way relationship. We can learn from these organizations. We can learn how does UNICEF go about doing community assessments? How does UNESCO monitor or evaluate projects? So increasingly, there are opportunities to collaborate between Rotary and the United Nations. And I want to give you an example. Well, let me just say, one of the main activities of the network for the last 20 years has been to host the annual Rotary Day at the UN in New York. There was a time when this event was the third most significant event on the Rotary calendar after the International Convention and the International Assembly. Typically, the board would meet in New York, either just before or just after the Rotary Day. And we would usually have the Secretary General of the United Nations or the Deputy Secretary General or senior officials from the UN Secretariat. 3 years ago, we met in Geneva for the first time at the European headquarters of the UN. 2 years ago, we met in Nairobi at the African headquarters of the UN. I was part of the planning team for that event. I went down to Nairobi on several occasions. On the first occasion, I learned that the UN Environment Programme, which is the environmental arm of the United Nations, is headquartered in Nairobi. So I asked to speak to representatives of the UN Environment. 5 young people came into the room, all environmental activist looking people. Unbeknown to us, the team leader was a Rotary Peace Fellow from New Zealand. Doesn't get much better than that. The second person was a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. The third person was the president of one of the local Rotary clubs. And they came with a list of 25 projects, environmental projects, which they thought might be of interest to clubs and districts around the Rotary world. That led to a meeting between then President Barry Rassin and the Chief Executive of UN Environment, which led to a meeting between John Huko, the Chief Executive of Rotary, and senior staff at the UN Environment, which led to a decision to create a task force to prepare an environmental toolkit. This was a publication which was distributed in Hamburg at the International Convention 2 years ago, a very professional result of a collaboration between the staff of UN Environment, the staff of Rotary in Evanston, and the Environmental Sustainable Rotary Action Group. You can download this publication. It gives a lot of very practical advice on how to identify potential environmental projects, how to implement them, how to monitor, how to evaluate them. A great example of the collaboration between Rotary and a UN agency. And I'm rather hopeful that there'll be other toolkits in each of the other areas of focus in the pipeline. 2 years ago, when Mark Maloney was the president, he had or wanted to have 5 presidential conferences to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the signing of the UN Charter and of the relationship between Rotary and the UN. The first was held in New York in November of 2019. The other 4 were due to be held last year. The first in Santiago, Chile, had to be cancelled because of protests in that country at that time. The second and third were due to be held in Paris and in Rome, but because of COVID-19, they were cancelled. And the last one was to be held in Honolulu, just before the start of the International Convention on June the 5th, which happens to be World Environment Day. It was a great shame because we had lined up a very impressive array of UN speakers, and it would have been a fantastic event. But perhaps when the International Convention comes back to Hawaii, which I think is in 2027, perhaps we'll be able to recreate a UN-specific event at that time. This year, there have been several Rotary Days. One was in Brussels last November, around World Polio Day. This was an opportunity to express our gratitude to the member states of the European Union who have contributed to the polio initiative. And then last March, we had another event with the World Health Organization in Geneva. It was a virtual event. The main focus was on maternal and child health care, but with some focus obviously on COVID-19 and on polio. And there'll be similar Rotary Days in the pipeline. And this is an extension of Rotary's role as a peaceful organization. The UN is perhaps the world's most significant, or should be the most significant, peace-building organization in the world. And for Rotary to be partnering with the UN is a very significant move, as I believe. 2 years ago, I went to Paris, to UNESCO. They laid out the red carpet for me. I'm not used to red carpet treatment. And when I said, why are you doing this? They said, because we regard Rotary as the #1 civil society organization in the world. Can you believe that? Rotary is the #1 civil society organization in the world. And I've heard similar statements from some of the other organizations. I don't know that Rotarians realize what an amazing footprint we have in the international humanitarian community. We are very well respected. We've been going for a long time. We are financially very sound. We are quite large, almost 1.2 million members, and a few 100,000 Rotaractors and Interactors. And we are involved in literally thousands of global grant, district grants, and other ways in which we advance the world's sustainable development goals and humanitarian objectives. So we should be very proud of the role that Rotary is playing. And it's because of that history and the respect in which we are held, that we're able to go to governments to advance the polio objective. We advocate for polio, and our advocacy is very successful. We've raised a lot of money because of the reputation that we have and the respect that is shown to us all around the world. So moving on from our relationship with the UN, the next most significant event in Rotary's peace-building history was the development of the Rotary Peace Center program. And you've heard two tremendous ambassadors of that program today, Reem and Gretchen. I don't recall that Scott was a Rotary Peace Fellow. I'm sure he's a wannabe Rotary Peace Fellow if he's not, and I guess it's not too late. So the Rotary Peace Fellowship Program, the first cohort went in 2002. You probably know a lot about this. We partnered with a number of universities around the world, each of which had a world-renowned reputation for their peace and conflict resolution curriculum. At that time, at the turn of the century, very few universities were offering a peace and conflict program. Now, there are hundreds. I like to think that Rotary might have led the way in terms of promoting peace and conflict resolution as a course of study. We offer a master's program, a 2-year program, and a 3-month certificate program. It's now a 12-month program. Recently, as you probably know, we have opened a new peace center in Uganda, Makerere University in Kampala. Very exciting development. And the Africans are just so thrilled to have a peace center in their own continent. And the center is fully funded for several years. So that's very exciting. And as you may have heard, we've recently received a very large gift to fund a peace center somewhere in the Middle East and North Africa. No decisions yet as to where that might be, and I think it'll be quite some time before any decisions are made about where that might be, but it is a very exciting development. I've often said that once the polio program is over, and we will eradicate polio, the Peace Fellowship Program may well be Rotary's most enduring legacy. We now have around 1,500 graduates, and many of them are now holding positions of some responsibility in the UN, in the State Department, in the World Bank, in Hawaii, in other parts of the world. So we're really beginning to get a dividend on this investment. And the great thing about the program is that it's at no cost to clubs or districts. It's fully funded. We now have around $175 million in the Peace Endowment Fund. And this is the result of contributions from about 9,000 Rotarians. It's been a very successful fundraising program. It just amazes me how many Rotarians believe so strongly in peace that they're prepared, in many cases, to give very large amounts of money to fund the program. So moving on from the Peace Fellowship Program, I guess the next big event was the formation of the Rotary Action Group, and you've heard all about that from Reem. I remember when that happened, I was quite heavily involved working with Al Jubitz and Dennis Wong. And that's been a great innovation. The RAG has become involved in quite a number of important initiatives. You've heard about the chapters that are being developed in other parts of the world. And I think the potential for the RAG to be a kind of internal think tank for Rotary is tremendous. We have some peace-oriented staff in Evanston. We have, of course, an area focus manager for peace and conflict resolution. We have a peace manager. But the thinking in terms of peace, what Rotary's peace building agenda should be, really needs to come for Rotarians. And I'd like to think that the Peace RAG will lead the charge in this respect. I've had this conversation with Reem, with Al, with Dennis, with other board members. And I think that they're slowly getting the message. And I hope that they listen to it again, because I really do think the Peace RAG needs to play a critically important role in helping Rotarians develop their peace building agenda. So we have various peace partnerships. And again, you've heard about the partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace. I was involved in arranging that partnership. The chief executive of the Institute for Economics and Peace, Steve Killelea, is an Australian, often described as the Bill Gates of Australia, a very wealthy man who has decided to use his considerable resources towards researching the economic cost of peace and the economic cost of war. And some 12 or 30 years ago, he established the Global Peace Index. Since then, he's established other peace indices, and they have become important reference points in universities and in foundations. The partnership with the Institute has really been very successful. Many Rotarians ask, what can I, as an individual Rotarian, do to promote peace? Well, in collaboration with the Institute for Peace and Economics, Rotary has established a Peace Academy. You can go online and you can do a course. It takes about 3 hours, and you will be, if you pass, you will become a certified peace builder. And I think many Rotarians have taken the trouble to do that. And I would encourage you to explore that possibility. I don't have the web reference handy, but I'm sure Reem knows where it is, and she can put it on the chat box if she's still on the call. We have lots of peace conferences. The Global Peace Forum that you're attending today is a good example. Just in the last few months, I've attended peace conferences in Turkey, in Hong Kong, in Australia. There are many more in the pipeline next year with President-elect Sheikh Mehta. There'll be 7 presidential conferences around the world. The last one will be a peace conference in Houston, just ahead of the International Convention in Houston next year. I don't know whether Rudy Westerveld is still on the call. He's been heavily involved in organizing fantastic peace conferences in California. There's another big conference coming up in Birmingham, Alabama in 2023. We have peace symposia every 3 years with the Rotary Peace Fellows. We've invited a number to attend a peace symposium held in conjunction with the annual convention. We have peace builder clubs, peace builder districts. I think Ree mentioned the criteria for becoming a peace builder club. I think there are close to 300 peace builder clubs in the world, which is fantastic. We have peace poles, we have peace partners. Dennis Wong is very much involved in International Cities of Peace. So peace is in our DNA. Again, I'm often asked, after polio, what will be the next corporate project, if there is one? And I have no particular insights into that. But if I was a betting man, I would say that we might well have some project that has a peace dimension. I don't see Rotary becoming a maternal and child healthcare organization. The World Health Organization has that under control. I don't see Rotary becoming a water organization, water and sanitation. WASH is a very important component of what we do. We have many projects in the WASH area, but there are hundreds of organizations that focus exclusively on different aspects of water and sanitation that are better resourced and have more technical resources than Rotary has. Similarly with disease prevention, we're not a disease prevention organization. But in the area of peace, I really do think it may be possible for Rotary to carve out a niche for ourselves to add value, particularly in the peace and education area. We all love peace, we all love education. And I'm going to tell you about a peace and education project very shortly. In fact, that might be the right point to segue into the initiative that I'm rolling out in zones 33 and 34. So I've long believed that Rotarians have not only the ability, but have a responsibility to do what we can to help bridge the divide that we see in so many communities. And as we know, conflict always arises locally. So we need to develop local solutions for local conflicts. And what better organization to be involved in that endeavor than Rotary International, arguably the world's largest community-based, peace-oriented organization. So I'm very anxious to see Rotary doing and Rotarians doing as much as we can in whatever areas we can, whether it's in the form of peace conferences, peace builder clubs, peace polls. There are so many ways and working with our Peace Fellows, the Peace Incubator that Walter Giga arranged in November last year is another good example. The other thing I do want to comment on, 2 years ago, finally, Rotary formed a Peace Fellow Alumni Association. We have an alumni coordinator. His name is Bill Rintz. He's based in Evanston, doing a fabulous job of bringing the Peace Fellow community together. And with his support, they've arranged various seminars and conferences. And I see that as a very exciting development. We often talk about what can we do to collaborate with Peace Fellows. Well, now there's a mechanism in place to help facilitate that. And if you haven't had anything to do with Peace Fellows, other than Gretchen and Reem, you should reach out to, because the Peace Fellows are creme de la creme. They are some of the best and brightest. I see Mark is clapping. Gretchen is secretly agreeing. She's not being very vocal about it, but I think she agrees. So early last year, as I was getting close to assuming my role as a director, I started to plan what I could do as a director. What legacy could I could I deliver? What project could I start? And I teamed up with 2 Rotary Peace Fellows, both of whom, again, are stars in my book. One is Patricia Schaefer, who is the chief executive of an NGO called New Gen Peace Builders, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the other is Anna Patel, the former chief executive of Outward Bound Peace Building, currently a senior advisor to Outward Bound Peace Building. And I've known both these ladies for a long time. And we talked and planned, and over a few weeks or months, gradually the idea developed to form what we now call the Youth and Peace in Action, engaging young community peace builders. And I've gone out to the districts in zones 33 and 34. There are 31 districts. We have developed a very comprehensive project which will involve at least 21 out of those districts. And what I'd like to do now, because I've prepared my remarks about this, I'm going to switch to my prepared speech so that I don't get it wrong. So bear with me while I switch over. All right, so I've briefly mentioned the Youth and Peace in Action project. It's called YPA for short. The YPA is quickly becoming recognized as the largest local peace building initiative in the history of Rotary International. Can you imagine that? Let me repeat. The Youth and Peace in Action project, being rolled out in zones 33 and 34, is, according to the staff of Evanston, the largest local peace building initiative in Rotary's history. It builds on Rotary's 100+ year of history of peace advocacy, which I've referenced earlier in my remarks. I think I might have mentioned, or maybe Mark mentioned, I had the great good fortune to serve for 4 years on the Rotary Peace Centers Committee, and I chaired that committee for 3 years. That's the committee that selects the Peace Fellows and oversees the program. And then I served for 2 years as the Dean of the Rotary Representative Network, the body that oversees, as I mentioned, Rotary's relationships with the UN and other international organizations. So as I say, I spoke with Schaefer and Anna Patel. They both completed their Rotary Peace Fellowships in the Professional Development Program at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand. Both have devoted their careers to experiential youth and community peace education programs, and both have significant experience working and collaborating with Rotarians in our 2 zones. And the more we exchange ideas, the more my dream began to turn into reality. Last year, between August and December, 22 of the 31 districts in the 2 zones contributed funds for the establishment phase of YPA, and hundreds of district and club leaders have contributed ideas and experience to finalize the plan. 3 weeks ago, on April the 7th, we officially launched the YPA initiative and called for zones 33 and 34 and potential partners in the community and nationally to ride on the train with us. The timing of this initiative has never been more important. As we all know, polarization is widespread. Democracy has been under attack. A recent seminal report on educating for American democracy called for re-engaging and supporting schools, teachers, and students in civic and community engagement. We need more peace and unity, and I'm excited about the potential for the YPA. So what exactly is YPA? Essentially, it has 4 components, each one supported by local funding and volunteers across the districts in the 2 zones. In the next school year, the YPA will include, first, a virtual event on the International Day of Peace, which is on September the 21st, 2021, in which thousands of Rotarians, teachers, and students will be invited to join the Rotary Peace Train. Secondly, online peace education training for multiple schools and youth service organizations in the fall semester of 2021. The third component is virtual facilitated peace project training and implementation in the spring semester of 2022 for service-minded students who have completed the online certification process. And fourth, and finally, excuse me, a final united celebration in May 2022 to share peace